and legal affairs. So
Are they doing that because of COVID?
yes, they're doing that because of the uptick of COVID and whatever your beliefs are, it doesn't matter. It's what we got chiming down from the top. So, and we're gonna have to abide by that. So. But trust me, my goal, if I'm reelected, is to get us sitting down together in the same room ASAP. So with that, we're gonna call the meeting to order. We do have a couple of unique things tonight on our agenda here. One, we need to modify our bylaws because we do have elections tonight for some officers, but also some at-large seats. So, but I need to do a roll call. Those that are at large are not technically, help me understand if I say this correctly, please, Megan. Those that are at large up for election tonight are not eligible to vote.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah, your term was technically up last month.
correct. Your term was up last month. So here we go. So if I do call your name, it's okay. We'll check you off, but that you're here, it's not a big deal. So let's do a roll call because we do have some folks online. Al Vandenbrink, yeah, I'm here. Bill Banaraka.
Yep.
Brian Hodge.
Yeah, here.
Thank you. Callie Hendrickson.
Here.
Chuck Whiteman. Here. Deirdre. Yep,
I'm here, but I'm not really here because my term's up.
I understand. Yep.
She was here a month ago.
Doug Davis.
Present.
Doug Munger.
He's in the hallway right here.
Okay, I know he said he was gonna be back. So Frank Alphone. Just talk president.
I'm here.
Gary Moyer.
Here.
Hunter Causey.
He's sick tonight, Alden.
Okay. Jay Sheehan.
Yes,
Okay,
here remotely.
Jackie Sheehan is here.
Yes, Jason's here.
Jay, sorry. Thank you. Jackie Brown. I just got an email from her. I don't know if she's gonna join us or not, but she just sent an email to the group. She's got COVID pretty damn bad. So, yeah, that sucks for sure. So, Jeff Meyer. Here. Jeff Comstock. Yes. Casey Green.
Yep, I'm here online.
Thank you. Ken Brenner.
Here.
Kent Ventries. I know he said he may be having a conflict as well. Mike Camblin. Here. Pat O'Toole. Rich Thompson. Sean Welder. Here. Steve, you're here. T. Wright.
Here on the phone.
Thank you. Tim Winkler. Tom Gray. Yep. Travis Day.
Yep.
Vince Wilzig.
Yes.
Will Myers.
President.
Sure. That's it. So we do have a quorum, so we can move ahead with that. So we want to go around the room. I know we get introduction of members and audience. Al Vandenbrink, municipal representative for Rio Blanco County, Meeker and Rangeley.
Stanko Community Ag Alliance.
Holly Kirkpatrick, Upper Yampa-Water Conservancy District.
Chuck Wyman.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Holloway. I'm the director of the Creek Chamber and a Monmouth County resident, as well as I'm on that ballot right back there.
Mr. Wilson.
Frank Alphone, the domestic water provider.
Hendrickson.
And someone else just came in and sat so pleasantly down here. Yes,
Everyone, Jennifer Wellman with the Nature Conservancy.
in the back. Yes.
Chris Collins, I'm with the White River Conservation District.
I'm Ed East Messina. I'm the Emergency Natural Resource Manager for Rio Blanco County.
Okay.
Hearing Moyer, Rio Blanco County Commission.
Sean Mulder, Yellow Jacket Water Conservation District.
Deirdre McNabb at large,
Roundtable as of last month.
Gotcha. Speaking with a mouthful.
Again.
Jeff Comstock, Moffett County. Steve Inquirer, Moffett County Municipality Rep.
Okay,
Doug Davis, Moffett County.
I'm Jeff Myers, I'm an at-large member from Route County, a ranch south of Hayden.
Mike Camlin, Juniper Conservancy District.
Bill Badaraka, at large up for election.
Doug Munger, Route County Commissioner Rep.
Megan Stetson, reporter.
And I see, we're gonna go through online here. I see Steve, you're online.
Yes.
So, okay. And Mike Itel, I'm just gonna go in order as I see it up here. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Good evening, Mike Itel with the Colorado River District. I'll be speaking to you in a little bit about the cloud seeding program.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us. Cheryl.
Yep.
Carol Horton with Yampa School Programs.
Welcome. Ken.
Hi, I'm Jeff Derry with Center for Snow and Avalanche Studies.
Thanks, Jeff. Brian.
Ryan Hodge, Environmental Representative.
Excellent. Linda. Mr. T. Wright. Casey.
Yeah, Casey Green, Great Northern Water Conservancy District.
Excellent. Julia. Julie, sorry.
Hi, I'm Julie Baxter. I'm the new Water Resources Manager for the City of Steamboat Springs.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. I'm going to back up a little bit and go to Glenda.
Hi, I'm Glenda Shin and I work with the Pot Hook Water Conservancy District.
Excellent. Thank you. Russ.
Russ and CWCB. Good to see you all. Good to see you, Alden.
Likewise.
Welcome.
Jeff. Jeff Deary. Okay.
I'm
Andrew?
sorry. Yeah, I guess I introduced myself twice. I'm Jeff Derry with Center for Snow.
Yeah, I saw that in my bad. So Andrew,
Hey, it's Andy Bauer, Yampa River Fund Manager with the Nature Conservancy.
welcome. Thanks for joining us. Sam.
Hey, good to see everyone. Sam Stein, CWCB.
Thank you for joining us, Sam. Jonathan.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Bauer. I work with the Savory Little Snake Water, a River Water Conservancy District, and the Pot Hook Water Conservancy District as well.
Thank you for joining us. Aaron.
Aaron Light, Colorado Division of Water Resources.
Ian, you're hiding in the dark back there, man.
Ian Wilson, Trout Unlimited.
Yeah, sorry. Claire.
Claire Solers with Colorado Water Matters.
Greg. Okay, next one. Patrick, you're here too, huh? Yeah. Tim Osborne?
Tim Osborne, Craig Station Plant Manager.
Winkler. Kendall.
Yeah, my name's Kendall Davis and I'm with Nottingham Land and Livestock in Moffett County and Routt County as well.
Joining us, Kendall. Elizabeth.
I'm Elizabeth Chandler with the White River Integrated Water Initiative.
Okay. I think that's it. Oh, we got Maddie.
Hi, Maddie Muxworthy, Soil, Moisture, Water, and Snow Program Manager at Yampa Valley Sustainability Council.
Ken Brenner with the Upper Yampa Water Conservancy District.
Okay, apparently Al Vandenbrink's here too. Good, online. I didn't,
Oh, yeah, I just popped on. Sorry.
oh, you're using my account, that's why. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
never mind. So, it had me like, what's going on here a little bit? So, anyway, all right, let's get going then. So, thanks everyone for joining us. It's a pretty good crowd, so. So we're gonna approve and modify the agenda on that. So I don't have any additions to the agenda other than noting that it is full.
Do I need to add 90 or is it's in the meeting minutes says being on the agenda, but it wasn't what you sent out? Al?
Correct. 9D is actually on the agenda here.
Yes, okay, so I don't need me to make that.
No, I don't think so. It's on this agenda right here, so I think we're good. So then we're looking for approval of the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Mike.
I'll second.
Camblin, second by Steve. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Pass. Okay. Review the minutes from the September 8th meeting. Any questions, changes, errors, omissions, updates? If there's not, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Camblin,
Megan did a really good job. They look good.
good. We got a motion by second by Callie. Any other discussion? Okay, we'll call it. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion pass. Okay. Budget, Sam, I believe it's got Sam on here. Sam, you're up, bud.
Great. Thanks so much for having me tonight, and good to see everyone. I'll just quickly run through the numbers really quickly. So for the basin account, there is 693,490 in the native WSRF funds, plus 27,000 roughly in stimulus. So that's roughly $720,000. And there are about 8,388,000 in the statewide account currently. And Alden, do you want me to just kind of go through the rest of my role, or? Awesome. Well, I'll make this pretty quick. Just wanted to note that the Basin Implementation Plan public comment period ends on November 15th. So if you've not yet made a comment and like to do so, this week is your kind of last crack at it for public comment. Also wanted to note that the Colorado Water Loss Initiative is kicking off phase 2, offering free water loss training and technical assistance to Colorado water systems by the Colorado Water Board. So registration for phase 2 is now open, and you can go to coloradowaterloss.org to register for the program. And if it's all right, I will shoot you and Megan a link to the one pager if you want to distribute that to the membership. And just a couple other brief things to run through. I know this might be in other folks' reports since we've been presenting at a few other meetings with this information. First, we're launching the statewide water awareness survey. I think Russ may have just thrown that in the chat right now. So that continues the work done by the CWCB in 2013 with a similar survey. This is helping measure the changes in public perceptions and knowledge on key water issues over time. And the survey is being conducted by BBC and Davis Research. And this survey is available on our engagecwcb.website and can be taken in both English and Spanish. The survey conducted by BBC is more guided towards public, and but we do have a link for all the folks here just to kind of see what the delta is between people in the water industry and maybe people more from the public. Another quick thing that we have is we are making updates to, or proposing updates to the WSR criteria and guidelines. So we presented that at the IBCC and all chairs and also at the PEPO meeting. And lastly, just wanted to note that we have also rolled out the project's database for beta testing. This database is the continuation of all the hard work everyone here put into to finding projects during the BIP update period and putting together projects lists. We're hopeful that with more frequent updates, the next iteration won't be quite as heavy as a lift as it was this time. So just encouraging everyone to take a look at the projects database and feel free to give us feedback. Again, that's at engagecwcb.org. So looking forward to everyone's comments. It's something we're pretty excited about. And just wanted to also note that the CWCB board meeting is next week, November 17th and 18th. So with that, happy to take any questions.
I have one question relating, well, let me ask the group. Did anybody in the group have a question? Anybody got a hand up on the line there? Water loss initiative, is that directed towards like large system or municipality water loss, or a little bit more detail on that?
Sorry, that's a great point. So that is targeted at municipalities, but we are really encouraging small systems to participate as well. So there's kind of a lot of info on this. Do you mind, Alden, if I shoot you out an email with the one pager that can provide a little bit more detail?
I think that'd be really good to share around with everybody. So, because I personally have some interest in that as well, and there's other municipal representatives in here that may want to kind of know what's going on with that. So,
Sam and Alden, I put a link in the chat too, so you can get that. And the registration is open now, so definitely check that out.
Thank you. Anything else for Sam? Or was I moving on? Okay. Public input, comment? Do we have anybody online? Megan, did you receive anybody that wanted to make a comment? Anybody in the audience?
No, it doesn't appear. Oh, yes, Greg Peterson, it looks like has a question.
Greg, welcome.
Thanks, Alvin. It's good to hear you. Yeah, just a quick comment. Just here, I'm with the Colorado Ag Water Alliance, and we are holding our Ag Water Summit December 9th and 10th. This is going to be in Winter Park at the Headwaters Center. This is going to be a hybrid event. We're having to adjust pretty quickly just to make sure that we can include people, especially those whose work or safety concerns won't be able to attend in person. So we'll be a hybrid event, but already we've got about 100 producers from around the state who will be attending. We're going to be talking about storage, speculation, funding, compact. Both senators will be there to talk with the crowd. And thanks to the donations from and sponsorships from our sponsors and member organizations, the registration for agricultural producers is covered, and we can also cover their hotel costs and if they're able to attend. So if you are interested, you can just get in, our website is coagwater.org. And I'm just putting a link in the chat and reach out. And if you have any questions.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks for sending over the information to the other day. Thank you. Anyone else? We got two hands up there. Or was that Greg? Okay.
That was it.
Okay, moving on. Before we go into the elections, we do have to do a change to our bylaws. We had to do something similar when we did voting, not in person. And that's something similar for our bylaws, that specific language in there for paper ballot. So we have to add an electronic possibility or an electronic piece to this, to our bylaws. And really all we're gonna be adding in allowing electronic ballot for elections. That's what we're adding, just those few words to our bylaws to be added to that. So yes. Patrick has it up there for you. So
Alden, this is Ken Brenner. I move that we approve the amendment to our Article 6, Decision-Making, Section 1, and add in the second sentence, all elections will be conducted by either written or electronic vote, both of which will be an anonymous ballot.
thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
Can we ask for a friendly amendment to say as written on here, because you're changing, you need to change Article 2, because when we added the Greater Northern Conservancy District, we shifted the numbers down. So T. Wright wouldn't have a vote unless we change the numbers through here. Those are changing as well, so it just matches, it's minor minutia, but it needs to be correct.
You accept,
Friendly amendment, sorry.
you accept that?
I do.
Amendment accepted.
All right, excellent, thank you. Any other discussion?
Sorry.
Frank, Alpha. Yes. Yes, Will.
Alvin, it's T-Rod. I've got a question.
Yes, to your right.
The anonymous, how we're gonna do that electronically? Objection, just a question.
Yep, it's gonna be sent to.
It's Patrick or Megan. Okay, so
This
anonymous as we can make it.
Correct.
So
There.
when you are
Okay,
in
just
the
as long as
chat
that's
screen,
understood.
when you are in the chat screen on Zoom, if you go to the very bottom and change the setting from to everyone to myself, so, well, actually it'll be Alden. And search for him and just send a private message. And then that'll just come, nobody else will be able to see it, just myself. Or Patrick.
Hold on, we got T-Rex got it.
It's gonna come up. Oh, no. No, it's not gonna come up. If you send a private chat. It won't show up there? No, it will not show up there.
No.
She's sending a private chat to, you're gonna send a private chat to Alden. And that's going directly to Megan. I'm gonna be collecting the paper ballots here. And then we will count that way. Okay.
Welcome, Deirdre first. Yes,
Yeah, I
ma'am.
think it's just having been involved in certain elections, it's important to have at least two people counting the ballots,
Okay.
however you do it.
And that's kind of, we had her as impartial over as well. We have Megan as impartial because she's not on the round table.
Well, I'm not
And that's one, and then if we
I'm
need,
just saying, I think it's good to have Patrick and Nathan both doing it.
okay. Oh, thank you for expressing that further. So, yes, Will.
I don't want to waste a lot of time, but it might be beneficial if everyone who's voting electronically at least gives the acknowledgement that they understand the process before we do it, because it might be kind of embarrassing if somebody doesn't and it comes up.
Understand.
So this way we can kind of ensure that no embarrassing situations come up.
I was waiting, I really figured we were gonna have this discussion, so I'm glad we're having it, so I really am. Tom, you had something.
I was just gonna say, we probably need a list who the voting members are.
Yes, they have that. Megan has that.
But we don't.
Right back there.
On the ballot.
Yeah, it's on ballot.
And I'm sorry, I didn't print enough meeting packets because I had so many left over last time, but
Are there ample ballots?
Some of them can't vote.
Yes. Okay, bear with me. So who's eligible to vote tonight is all the existing members except those that are up for reelection.
That are at large?
That are at large, that are up for election. So like T. Wright, Deirdre, you're on the, whoever's on the ballot here that's existing, that was a previous member is not eligible to vote.
But not everyone in the room though.
Correct. Only Basin Roundtable members in good standing are eligible to vote. In good standing means your membership is present, so your term's not expired. Yes,
I'm
Kelly.
curious, why is it anonymous?
That's just the way the bylaws are set it up, and that's where they've done it, so.
Oh, it's in the bylaws already? I thought we
Yes.
just added that.
Yes.
no,
It's in the bylaws.
and that can always be changed, but if some people.
We have some folks that are hesitant and they wanted to have it anonymous, so it's been left that way. Yes, ma'am.
So I don't know that we did a vote on your motion before we got sidetracked into how we're gonna do the conversation tonight.
I don't believe we have voted yet. I call the
Thank you for
question.
catching that. So,
So Alden T. Wright,
yes.
I just want to be clear, I can't vote. That's all I need to know.
No, T. Wright can.
That's correct.
Yes.
So we need to back up because I screwed up and didn't get a vote on changing the bylaws as they had the friendly amendment done to it. So we do have a standing motion in a second. All in favor of accepting the vote for the bylaws as presented with the friendly amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Thank you. So now I can get back on track. Thank you for keeping me square here, folks. So,
You had a question. I think that needs more explanation.
so which portion now?
Well, who can vote?
Okay.
I think, yeah,
Who can vote are members that are not up for re-election tonight.
except for only the at-large members that are up for reelection.
Those at-large members, that's correct.
T-Right.
T-Right is not eligible to
No,
vote. He is
because
up
he
for
is up for
re-election. He's
re-election.
up for re-election on the Green River as an at-large in the Green River.
Okay.
Yep.
Simple if I can't vote.
So on the list, we've got Bill Badaraka, who cannot vote tonight. He's on the list. Bryn Martin, he's not on the member. Holly Kirkpatrick is on as a candidate. Deirdre is a candidate. Chuck Whiteman, Travis Day, Vince Wilczek, Chris Collins, and Jennifer Holloway. I know there's a candidates, but none of those, and there's a page 2. T-Wright Dickens,
Yeah, that's for the green and the.
and then, because there's a page 2 here that we have here, and then for the out of basin with water rights, we've got Pat O'Toole and Jonathan Bowler,
So they're non-voting anyway.
but they're non-voting seats, so, yes. So. And online, are you clear with those members that are eligible to vote online that you'll be sending a private message to Megan about your choices? Now, with that as well, when we go through it, we have no, we're limited as our bylaws, where you're only limited a certain amount of people to each county. Route County has 1 available seat. Okay, so if you do vote for an individual in Route County, no more than 1 vote for an individual in Route County. Okay?
You can vote for up to 6.
You can vote for up to 6, yes. County.
Another quick question, just so I'm making sure. So Patrick, are you running the one that's on the screen?
Yes,
Is that from your computer?
that's right here.
Okay, I just. That wasn't done. Okay.
This is just showing online.
Okay.
Is this river part of this? Can we do the first 6 and then Green River representative?
We sure can. If you want to do it that way, you can do page 1 if you want.
First would make more sense.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're just gonna do this one that's up on the screen right now. Brian, I see you're popped up on the screen. Are you okay, Brian?
Yeah, I think Patrick just answered my question. I just wanted to clarify that we're going to do this sort of one
Yes.
bout at a time. In other words, at large and then Green River, et cetera.
Okay.
So, but we only have 1 ballot. I mean, so unless we wanted,
Then you have page 2, which you can.
no, I understand that, but, okay.
So we're gonna do the first page.
So everybody tear off their first pages, because that's what I'm gonna be collecting. For those in the room, that you vote. For those online, you're gonna vote with a private chat.
Can I interrupt for a second? I thought on the agenda there was time for people to introduce.
Oh, there is. Yes.
Never mind.
Yep, and I do want to make sure we go through that because that's customary. Elections don't happen very often, as many of those that are around here, so, again. So I would like to give everybody up to 3 minutes so they can kind of say a little bit. Bill, you're number 1 on the list, so I'm gonna pick on you right away.
All right, well, I'll stand up. I'm Bill Badaraka. I've been attending the roundtable meetings, I believe, since 2013. And I've been an at-large member through 2 election cycles, I'm pretty sure, since 2015. I live in the Elk River Valley, the redheaded stepchild river that nobody ever mentions, but it's as big as the Yampa when it enters the Yampa. So I've flood irrigated when I ran a ranch for a while, and then I had my own property, and not a big parcel, but I do have a water right, pre-contact water right, and I flood irrigate and have done that for the last, I guess, about 30 years. Know a lot of the North Route ranchers and holders, and I try to disseminate and promote the roundtable and water rights and why they're important. And I'd like to continue on with the roundtable. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Can you do a voice check, make sure they heard that?
Did everybody hear that online? Can I get confirmation from one individual, please?
Yes, sounds
Thank
good.
you thank you very much, folks. So, Ren Martin. Ren, are you with us this evening? It's been a while since we visited. Okay. If he does pop in, let me know and we'll jump back to him. Holly.
Hi, everyone. My name is Holly Kirkpatrick. I think you probably know me by now. I participate in a lot of different water meetings that a lot of us all go to. I am the Public Information and External Affairs Manager for the Upper Yampa-Water Conservancy District. I have regularly attended these meetings for the past 2 years since I've been in that position there at Upper Yampa. I actively participate in the PEPO committee meetings every other month. And, water education is kind of my passion. And I think that the roundtable is in a really good position to kind of take that on now that we're moving past this BIP update. And I would really love the opportunity to be a part of that.
Thank you. Deirdre.
Hi, my name is Deirdre McNabb, and I'm just finishing up my first term on the Yampa-White-Green Roundtable. I'm a rancher in Rio Blanco County with pre-compact water rights. We have FARS permits and BLM permits. I'm very, I believe passionately, as I think everybody here does, that water is essential ingredient, not just to the economy, but to the quality of our lives here. I'm very interested particularly in agriculture and some new practices in terms of keeping more water in the soil. So that's something I'd like to work with the roundtable going forward on, learning more about that together. I'm the president of the Meeker Mustang Makeover in Meeker, and I'm one of the founding board members of the White River Alliance. So I hope I have the opportunity to continue to serve. It's a very dynamic group, and I think we're in for more tough times ahead. So I think there's some important decisions to be made. Thank you.
Thank you. Chuck.
My name is Chuck Whiteman. I've lived in Meeker for 45 years. Before that, I lived in Oak Creek, working on the Stagecoach project. Surveyed the Stagecoach Dam, reservoir the first time, and familiar with water rights in that area. But mostly, I work White River, working for some various companies that have significant water rights. Land manager for a company that's got water rights. We have 26 grazing lessees. We have agriculture. We have hunt leases. Being a surveyor, I pretty much know about every head gate, every water right on the White River. Mapped that quite a bit. I think I've been on the board for 4 years. It's been a pleasure. See you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whiteman. Oh, no worries. Travis Day.
Well, I'm Travis Day, second generation in the water well industry. Moved to Meeker in '81. Been in water all my life. We drill water wells, worked on water systems, irrigation systems. On town council, the water well contractors board. Been involved with water well, like I said, all my life. I believe I could bring another perspective to the round table with groundwater and stuff. Been on the board for a couple terms, and I'd love to continue on.
Thank you, Travis. Vince Wilczek.
I'm Vince Wilczek. This is my second term for this also. I'm fourth generation in the property I own in Rio Blanco County, Rangeley. My history goes back with ranching, law enforcement. Now I'm in the private sector, and in that, people have come to me because they know I sat on a board member for the Rio Blanco Water Services District also. And They know my passion about water, so they do seek me out and they look to me for advice, questions, concern. And because I've lived in Rangeley my entire life and know people both in Rio Blanco and Rangeley, or Meeker and Rangeley, I get calls from both ends of the county. And that's why it's important, I think, for me, is these people know who I am, they like who I am, and what I represent, and they know I'm a approachable person, they can come and talk to me or call me on the phone. That just happened last week. Guy on Meeker called and said, hey, I looked up, sorry, on the Basin Roundtable, what about this? And was asking questions. So I was able to help that person through it, and that's the person for the town of Meeker. So I thought that was very beneficial, that my history goes back that far with individuals, but they feel comfortable calling me. And so I'd like to continue on with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. Chris Collins.
I'm Chris Collins. I'm employed at Art Positions. I lived in Meeker full time since 2015. I own a ranch down there. I own and operate shares on 2 different ditches down there, but I also lease ground in 2 other ditches. I'm a board member of the White River Conservation District, and through that, I'm really involved with the White River Integrated Water Management Initiative. Through that, I'm also I'm a member of the Planning Advisory Committee for the initiative. I'm on both of the diversion assessment teams and also the riparian health assessment teams for that project. So I think I've been on 75% of those assessments. I've been in agriculture most of my life. Since graduating from college, I did graduate with a Bachelor in Watershed Science from CSU '98. Agriculture is a huge passion of mine. Water rights, water in general is a huge passion. I read a lot, so I can learn more for myself, but also for my neighbors. And, some my friends that I work with in the valley. So I would appreciate your guys' consideration. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Jennifer Holloway.
Hi, I'm gonna make it so that no one's the backside. Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Holloway. I'm excited to be here. This is my very first meeting, so I will be offering a fresh perspective to this group. I have heard about you over the years. My former boss at CNCC, Jeff DeVere, was on this basin, and we had plenty of conversations about your work you're doing. But over the last year, my work with economic development and the chamber has led us to really try to refine our options in our future for this area. And it does come back down to water, which you guys already know in your daily lives as in ranches. And we have water experts in the room that have studied it. I am not a water expert by any means, but like the rest of you, I do share a passion for water. I share a passion for this area and how we can maintain the open spaces that we have, that we can create a healthy ecosystem and nurture that in the way many of you guys have been spending generations doing. I did grow up here in Craig. I do have water rights. I have land on the Yampa and on Fortification Creek. And I'm in a different situation with that as well, though. The place I bought on Fortification is I need to do something with those water rights. I bought a place that I haven't used them yet. So I have a 7-acre spot that I've been trying to do a business plan and figure out how can I do, a little, what the state has identified to us as our best opportunity. Little niche ag businesses, agritourism, something that focuses on our culture. So I feel that I've just been led into this work because of how I'm trying to represent our community and our businesses and how our business's future will look. And then on the personal side, I've played in the Yampa my entire life. The last year I was extremely blessed to be able to go floating the Green and the Yampa, as well as join Senator Romney and Bennett on the Colorado. So super excited to learn more. I did just finish a WECO water fluency course. So I know a few words that you guys know. But I always learn and I listen and I pride myself in that. So I really want to be part of this group to help our whole community move forward. If not, I want to still be part of this group moving forward to see how we can work together to build this community. And the chamber wants to do whatever we can to help the existing businesses, whether it's ranchers, small retail, et cetera. And most of my background is in business, but I was lucky to be adopted into a local family that my step family, homesteaders, the whole thing. I did learn some ag stuff as a kid. I'm not so great on the horses anymore. But you know, I know how to stick the stick in the steering wheel and jump out the back and throw the hay out and the truck drives itself in a circle. I'm sure you guys are now high tech and don't do that anymore. Like I said, our homestead has been shut down since I was in high school. So we're one of those families that wasn't able to keep it going. And I appreciate all the work that you that have been able to do, and all of you that have been, you know, working for our water. But that's all. If you have any questions,
Thank you.
I open it up, so let me know.
Ken, where you have your hand up?
Are you done with your introductions from all of the candidates?
For the first page, yes.
I'll hold my question until you're done.
Okay, thank you. T. Wright, Mr. T. Wright Dickens.
Yep, I'm on.
Yep.
Water right holder on the green. Water is one of my few vices, and enjoy the group and want to continue to serve. Thank you.
Pat O'Toole. I don't know if Pat's here.
He said he was going to be gone tonight.
Okay. Johnson Bowler. We had you here.
Yeah, hi, thank you. My name's Jonathan Bowler. I'm applying for a non-voting out of basin representative. I'm a water rights holder on the Little Snake River in Carbon County, Wyoming. And I'm also the water administrator for the Savory Little Snake River Water Conservancy District. I work with irrigators from both Colorado and Wyoming. I work with commissioners from both states, and I think it'd just be helpful for both of the states and all of the administrators that we work together with, just to have more participation in these meetings and a little bit more open communication and representation from the major tributary that's coming from your state to the north up here. So I really enjoy the conversations that come out of this group, and would just really enjoy to be a part of those moving forward. So thanks for your consideration. I do have a degree in water resource management from University of Wyoming, and spent a lot of time about a decade ago in the Yampa Valley working with environmental and recreational water use issues. So this agricultural perspective is a new direction for me, one I'm really enjoying, and keeping that economy here in the Little Snake River Valley is really important to me. And I really appreciate that you all have a strong agricultural perspective within the group as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna yield to Mr. Brenner here for a moment. You had a question or a statement, whatever.
Just a quick question. I wanted to make sure that we can vote for, other than the three candidates in Routt County, we can vote for any group of people we want. There is no possibility to violate the no more than 6 in one county.
Correct.
That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody for throwing their name into the mix, and it's good to see the interest where it's at. We've got new names and new interest from all over the place and actually out of state. I actually am thrilled to see that. So thank you. Yes, Doug.
So just a quick question here. I want to make sure everything we got kosher here. So in the note that got sent out with your email that had this, the information and the seats and the timeframe, representatives shall represent the interests whom shall own adjudicated water rights. So I guess, and then we have this question here, whether people own water rights or not own water rights. Where's our,
Well, so according to the, I guess, definition, if you will, of the at-large, it says, representatives will represent the interests required under the act, at least 10 of whom shall own water rights.
okay,
So I'm
that's,
understanding that there's
That's right.
5 positions that do not need to own water rights.
and then if I could, my second question would be, so you said that in the real Route County, we can only vote for 1 because there will be up at the maximum 6 of the, out of the, and so then is Rio Blanco pushed in the same situation? I mean,
No.
we have 4 right now that are on there. A couple of them are reapplying, so that's part of that. So,
No, we can only, one county can hold no more than 6.
Right.
So Rio,
Right now, if Rio
Rio
has
has-
0 on, out of the at-large, Rio Blanc County has 0 representation.
okay, that's fine. Great, thank you. All
you
good,
don't have
thanks.
to choose someone from route, but if you do, it needs to be. of
No more
those
than
3.
one.
Yeah.
Are we clear? Yes, Will.
Is it adjudicated water rights for the Yampa Basin folks too? Or, I mean, like, is a well permit count, or is it just an adjudicated water?
I think it's just an adjudicated water right. It's all it says is water right holder. Any other questions before we start moving forward to the ballot? All right, with that, let's do the ballot.
So online, folks, if you want, again, remember to privately chat to Alden. And first names, you can do a first name, comma, first name, that will be.
Yeah, so
ideal.
if you want to, one person just sent their vote in, one message, all the people they were voting for, that's handy. That way I don't have to scroll through a bunch of messages. So, but if you have questions, holler, but.
First page, please.
Yeah, but once we're done with the first page, we're gonna roll right into the second page. So, and once everybody is done online, I'm gonna get that confirmation. We'll move forward, so.
How about them Broncos?
I'm not a football guy anymore. I get-
That's probably safer for your
You know-
blood pressure.
They're on my list, they traded Von Miller.
They just made the list, huh?
Made the list.
Only one out one, okay. Everybody else is in.
While we're waiting, I'm just gonna kind of do an intro to some of our presentations tonight, so I can kind of say some time. We've got some concepts that have kind of started flushing out when we did our VIP and looking at doing forest health management. So we're looking at forest health management and forest, very large, very broad. And we're gonna start hearing a series of presentations that started before in previous meetings, but we're gonna continue on with this discussion tonight. I know Ken Brenner and I have talked considerably about this. So you're gonna hear these 2 presentations, and remember, our agendas are set up months in advance. And even though I'm hoping to come back as your chair, I'm letting you know that folks are already soliciting us months in advance to present. And we have folks with the Colorado forest industry, US Forest Service that want to come sit with you and talk with you about these concepts developing, that we can maybe start seeing if we can't develop a scope of work or share some new ideas here on what we can do with our forest to let them go back to being the sponge that they were in the water yielding capacity that they had once upon a time. And realize we're doing forest time measuring water time. I never really thought about that, but you measure forest time, I guess, in decades, just like we do in water. So it's gonna take us a while to get that whole conversation done, but I'm bear with us as we go through this, and I hopefully I'm back next month or next meeting as your chair, but if not, I'll make sure to share with the other chair that you do elect, that these are some of the things that are coming about from this group. And actually, I'm kind of intrigued, because it was something that I never thought about, but it's exciting when you're looking at a whole new level, all LiDAR technology, forest health, conservation cutting, whatever you want to say, getting mills back into work here. I mean, there's a various unique matrix of how this whole thing is evolving that goes down, that's putting people back to work, but for overall health for our society. So, in our part of the world. So I'm excited to see that going, and that helps me. So when we go into that presentation, I can just kind of shut up and let it go. So, and we've got two folks that are going to talk about that. So
I do have one quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Of the non-voting out of basin. So we had to apply, there's 3 vacancies. Do we have to vote for 2 or can we vote for 1?
you can vote for one or none.
Okay, all right, I just wasn't sure. Thank you.
Yep. Are you done with the first page?
I think so.
Okay, if you are,
Everybody online, if you got a message from me back saying thanks, I received your vote. If not, can you please reach out? Just so I don't miss anything.
Yeah.
I think I have them all.
Last call for votes. For page 1 votes, yes.
Who are we supposed to email it to or to chat it to?
My account, to me, Alden. I'm not looking, it's going to Megan's running it, so. You've seen your mountains so green in the past few years. I admired that drive from Dinosaur to here because it was green.
It looks like spring out there.
I know. Yeah.
In places.
Which spring was that? Green, right?
2 weeks ago, we read cats.
Yeah.
Let me know when you're ready and I'll proceed. So while we're waiting as well, do you mind if I hop around the agenda and get maybe an update from one of our standing committees? Callie, you're up.
And I was planning to tell you, we don't have to do it, so I'll just read off the top of my head.
We got a bunch of 5-minuters, so we just will fill her in.
Kelly Hendrickson, Executive Director of the White River and Douglas Creek Conservation Districts. So the Integrated Water Initiative is continuing to move forward. We are pretty excited. Just last night, we had another PAC, so that's our Planning Advisory Committee meeting. So just a real quick update on that. We did have a presentation from Colorado Water Conservation Board and 4 others in regards to in-stream flow conversation, just to kind of inform our folks about that a little bit more. So that was our topic, as well as we have been taking our mission and the 4 primary goals back to the community. So we had 4 public input sessions again around the county a couple of months ago, I guess, really is when we did. And so we brought that a little bit of feedback to the PAC. And so the PAC is considering those adjustments. I think they'll be, they're small, but they may be small tweaks, but have a significant impact for some folks. So we'll finalize that in January. So the other good news is we're completely finished with all of the diversion structure assessments. So I think there were 25 or 27 of those. We had actually scheduled to only do 20. And I think there were 25 of those. So And then we've also done more than 20 riparian assessments that have also been done. And remember, we had teams that did that. And so we had some folks like Chris put a tremendous amount of time into those assessments. The other quick update I would give you that we're just kind of excited about is that as of this morning, had the chance to visit with the Colorado Cattlemen's group, and they've applied for a grant, and we're gonna be able to have some money that's actually seed money to start improving a diversion assessment that will be a demonstration project. So we've got a little bit of seed money there, and we're working on that, and my board members don't even know that yet. So it's kind of fun and
One
exciting.
does.
What's that?
One does.
One does?
One does. All right.
So, yeah. So anyway, kind of exciting there, but any questions on our process? It's moving right along.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Excellent.
Good for you. What's the extent of the reach of the river that you're looking at?
So we did the Cold White River from the headwaters to the state line. And it's broken into 3 segments. We've got our upper, middle, lower, and then we also included the Piano Creek, because that's a pretty significant group community out there and so forth. So Piano is our.
I just want to commend Callie. She hired 2 really great people to help coordinate that program, Carrie Brennan and Liz Chandler. And they've been terrific facilitators, coordinators, and good job picking great people.
You guys need, I'm gonna keep going. Looks like you guys need more time. All right, I'm just gonna keep going around. So I'm gonna pick Ken. Can I pick on Ken or Ken, Mr. Brenner? I'm gonna pick on you for just a 5-minute update for your PEPO committee.
Maybe he's taking a break too.
No, he didn't hear you.
Ken? All right, we'll give Ken a break.
Tom and I can go out. We'll make you quick.
Okay, thank you for volunteering.
The quick update on IBCC and Big River, we can do, I think, in maybe 7 minutes, but we did have an IBCC meeting on the 21st of October, which was a virtual meeting and the first one that we've had for a while because the summer meeting was canceled. You may know that Russ George, the chairman of the IBCC and director of compact negotiation, retired. He has been replaced by Dan Gibbs. Dan, of course, is the head guy of all of DNR. He's an energetic, charismatic guy, good speaker. And he gave an introduction at the IBCC meeting. If you wonder how a guy who has a big job, like running all of DNR, will also have time to dedicate to the IBCC and empower that to fulfill this role. If you're asking that question, you are probably not the only one. But that super governor appointed, he's a good guy, and I'm sure he'll do his best. If you think about the IBCC as the liaison, kind of the hub, the network between DNR, CWCB, and the roundtables, that's kind of how Tom and I like to think of it. We should be reporting on the progress that we're making on big initiatives like demand management. I can summarize that progress with one word: slow. It's going very slowly right now. There are a lot of moving parts to that. I don't have an update from the last board meeting, and I'm sorry that Jackie isn't here because we were kind of hoping to have her tell us. The IBCC meeting, I think, is illustrative of kind of what happened right at the very end. You know, Andy Muller, Executive Director of the River District. Andy put forward a motion that the IBCC form a subcommittee to prepare a conceptual proposal for demand management to sit in parallel to the frameworks put together by CWCB staff. And if you're on the Big River Committee, you received a draft of of River District's conceptual market proposal. If you aren't on the Big River Committee and you would like a copy of that, drop me a note or just come by and say hi, and I will email it to you. It is in the website space for our committee, so you can go on the main website, get that document down if you'd like. Very well done, probably the best document I think that we've seen on that topic. So Andy put forward that motion. There was some resistance to forming the subcommittee. The motions at the IBCC level require 75% majority to pass. And that motion did not receive 75% majority. There was, however, a motion to have a special IBCC meeting to consider that and work on putting the subcommittee together. That motion did pass, but special meetings are only held at the discretion of the chairman of the IBCC, Dan Gibbs. So Dan Gibbs still has the opportunity to say, yeah, we should have a special meeting. He also has the opportunity to say that's not necessary. So we have yet to hear about that. The next IBCC meeting will be in February. So has the demand management ball moved any closer to the goal line? Probably it has in a lot of different ways, but it's hard to see that that progress in a kind of a cohesive way. We spent some time this last IBCC meeting talking about future direction for the IBCC. What should that group of about 30 work on? And Tom and Jeff responded to a survey and put forward the notion that probably one of the most important things to be discussing at policy level is the interim guidelines. We didn't get a lot of traction for that at the last meeting, but we're gonna put forward that idea again for the February meeting. So we feel strongly that as the demand management process winds down, thinking about interim guidelines is kind of an important idea. Okay, Tom, anything more on IBCC you want to throw in there?
No, you didn't make the interest of time. We'll keep going.
Okay. The Big River Committee met just prior to this meeting. We're really focused on two things. In the near term, we are going to be learning more about interim guidelines. You're going to hear more about that from us. We think that that's just an extremely important idea. You may remember that defines joint operations for Powell and Meade and really many aspects of the Colorado River system. The current guidelines, I think just about everybody knows, don't favor the upper basin. They favor the lower basin. In fact, the lower basin has used the interim guidelines to great advantage. The guidelines themselves expire in 2026, so there'll be a negotiation process beginning fairly soon. Strategically, if you think that compact administration in some form of curtailment has the potential at least to rear its ugly head, then the guidelines become even more important for us strategically. Because if a compact administration was to come into effect, there will certainly be litigation that will draw that thing out for a long time. And that means that the interim guidelines will remain in force for the foreseeable future. So we have got to get on the right side of that and get that right. Now, does the roundtable really have a role in those negotiations? Of course not. That's the Upper Colorado River Commission. But don't forget that when we put our position out there in real words, on real paper, that other roundtables and the CWCB staff can read, that helps to change that direction of that discussion. And we sort of already proven that. So it's kind of important for us to keep that ball moving forward. Longer term, Al Bernard made reference to forest health and ecosystem services. This is a thing that I personally don't have a lot of background in. And so I'm really looking forward to the discussion. That is a longer term kind of discussion topic. A lot of learning has to go on. We do have Big River Committee members who are very interested in it and already have a lot of knowledge, people like Pat O'Toole and T. Wright. And they're going to help us guide that discussion. That, of course, is not work that we're going to get done in 2022. but work that we're going to kind of continue, and we'll be bringing you as much information about that as we can. So those two things, interim guidelines, forest health and ecosystem services. Questions?
Jeff, this T. Wright.
Yes,
T. Wright.
If I can just make a comment about the forest health thing and Alden, I don't want to presume that the Big River Committee is the place to have the forest health conversation. Doug Monger in our committee meeting earlier this evening made a salient point that there probably isn't consensus about, Doug's words were science, but there probably isn't consensus amongst our constituency about what a healthy forest is, and I respect that. So as we have suggested, we think this needs to be talked about. I was very glad to hear of Forest Service, who has in the past had representation on the roundtable and should, and State Forest, any of those folks that want to come to the table. So I'm very comfortable if it's more appropriate, Alden, that we create a different committee to hold that forest health conversation. If that makes folks more comfortable, folks are certainly welcome to participate in the Big River Committee around this topic. I think that there is an opportunity for us to find some consensus in this group around forest health, and to actually get some things being done on the ground. There's opportunities. So wherever is the appropriate place to hold that conversation, I just think we need to be, the roundtable needs to be focusing on that issue. So just to get that understood. Thank you.
If I may add my perspective to that, I believe forest health should be a large group discussion. I think we are the committee for that, and we need all ideas on deck, because there's some new stuff here coming out, and it's not necessarily across the board in acceptance that forest health needs to be managed. So don't believe that yet. So that's why I'd like to hear the good, the bad, the ugly. You've heard me say that before, but that's what's going to help us build a better dialogue and a process to move forward. So I think the whole group, you're all on a committee. You're the Basin Roundtable, and that's my perspective. So.
Tom, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say back to the IBCC stuff. You know, the IBCC was statutorily created just like at the same time, just like the roundtable, and it's the group that's to broker bigger issues around the state and has represented from all roundtables. Yeah, just said we're moving pretty slow, but there's a more and more consensus in the IBCC that, hey, look, we have a statutory duty to do, and we need to be putting input to state water things that are happening on a big scale, whether it's demand management or the inner guidelines. And so as things, you know, we all see things start to move faster, come to a head with this dry year. So I think because of that impetus that's happening in the IBCC, I think we're going to actually see more progress from the IBCC. And Jeff and I want you to know, are very conscious that we don't go there with our opinions. That's why we bring these ideas to the Big River Committee. That's why we vet things that are going on in the roundtables, because we go there to represent you guys, like the 7 principles of demand management that we created. So just stay tuned. It's, you know, you kind of think, what is that IBCC for? Sometimes we wonder that too, but I think it's going to be used more in the future.
Okay. So this is role reversal. Tom in the role of optimist and Jeff in the role of pessimist. Flip that around.
Okay. All right. With that, let's move on if we can, please.
I think we're more than amenable.
Thank you.
To changing that, because work on something like interim guidelines is what we do best. And work on a nebulous educational topic like forest health and ecosystem services isn't really the stuff that we're that good at. So you may be exactly right, Al.
I'm not going to say you're not good at it. but I think you're correct. I'm having fun with the evening, just like we do with the rest of us, so. Anyway, all right, now we're gonna move on to the second part of the ballot. Let's do the page 2, and then we'll do it all at once. We could, so. Page 2, we have, T. Wright's running uncontested, so if he gets 1 vote, he's in. And then you got Pat O'Toole and Jonathan, again, if they get 1 vote, they're in too. So, we can go ahead and do a vote and do her that way, and the same thing online.
Question. Since they're really not a contest, maybe we can just make a motion to accept them.
That's been done in the past, yes. And that's kind of why I threw that out there.
I would like to make the motion to accept T. Wright Dickinson in the Green River position. I do both at the same time. And the Outer Basin water rights, Pat O'Toole and Jonathan Fowler as those positions.
But Davis seconds, so we do have a motion and a second on the table. Discussion. Discussion online. Doug Davis. Any discussion online? I can't see everybody, so.
Call the question.
Well, that didn't work. I don't know how to do anything back. Oh, there.
Oh, Ken has a question.
Yes, Ken.
No, I just said like call the question. Let's move forward.
Okay, all in favor by following the motion for T. Wright Dickens and Pat O'Toole and Jonathan Bowler, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay? Okay, so those elections are done. Now we can do the read off of this one, then we'll go to officers. Do you want to read it? You want me to read it? Okay. Yeah. Bill Badaraka, in no particular order here. Charles Whiteman, Travis Day, Vince Wilczek, Chris Collins, Jennifer Holloway. Welcome aboard. We have a few that didn't make it, but I know there's a few that have had a vested interest in our roundtable before that have poured hours and hours into this roundtable. Some have created, I know Ren, he did our PEPO for quite a few years when I was early on here. Deirdre spent many hours working, pouring over the BIP and other facets for the roundtable. That's invaluable service, invaluable. And I'm very grateful for those people, what they bring to the table. And Holly, I know we're still working with you, and I'm glad you're still here. Don't give up on us. So there's other opportunities that are coming up.
I'm not going away.
Thank you. So with that, we'll move forward to the next item.
Alden, I would just thank everyone who applied and remind them that I believe it was 11 times I applied before they finally agreed to put me on. So perseverance will reward you.
Thank you. So we have vice chairs that are up for election. Mr. Camlin gave me his letter of resignation not too long ago. But Steve, you agreed to file in or step in a letter of interest for that. I know we're also seeking additional nominations for those that have not put their name forward. On the White River, Tim Winkler, he was online. I don't know if he's still there or not. He's down at the bottom.
He said his microphone wasn't working.
Yeah. But Tim Winkler is with us online. He wasn't able to be with us tonight, but I know he did share as well with Megan that he wants to continue in the capacity as vice chair. So if there is other nominations, I would entertain them at this time.
So we only have one vice chair though, right?
We have one vice chair for the Yampa and one vice chair for the White River.
Okay, thank you.
So there are two.
That's what I'm asking. Yeah.
But it's one for each basin.
Okay.
Yes.
So can we go through the motion process?
Yes, you can. So if there is no other nominations, then we'll just go through the motion process. So Doug Davis makes a motion to accept the ballot. Tim Winkler will be for the White River Basin. Steve Hinkenmeyer will be for the Yampa River.
Monger second.
Tom Gray, no, we got Doug Davis motion. Tom Gray, second.
Great.
So we have a motion and a second on the table. Discussion?
Good luck.
All in favor signify by saying, oh, discussion online, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're pretty busy on that, maybe.
Nothing, okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay,
Aye.
thank you. And then we'll move into chair. I know I did throw my name into the hat. This is my second in-person meeting with you all since I took chair. The first meeting, which was in November 2 years ago, and then the next meeting got canceled. Now this is November. Karma? I don't know. Had you too?
We need a new chair.
They renamed the hotel twice over there.
I know. So, but if there is others, I know I'm doing this as a community service. That's why I do this. And I really care a lot about water. And I think it's very evident in my passion. But there's others that have a desire to maybe do this job too. And I really don't want to stand in somebody else's desire to do this when I've done it already. I've had the experience. I've been a vice chair as well. And if somebody else would like to do this, I'd be more than happy to bow out and let you step into this capacity. But I do have a desire to move forward. And I will act in that capacity for you. So.
We already voted, Al. You're in a good go.
You did. I missed the motion second, I guess.
So I would move that we elect Alden as the chair and cast a unanimous ballot for Alden for chair.
Who seconded that? Gary Moyer? Doug Monger motion, Gary Moyer second. Discussion. Okay, with that, we'll call the question. Any discussion online? All in favor signify by saying aye, nominate or appointing me as your chair.
Aye.
I'll do my best to represent every one of you as I have in the past. You all got my phone number, my email, whether you're on the roundtable or not. I will take your phone calls and we will visit as we have in the past as well. So thanks, folks. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Al. Appreciate it.
So
I'm out of here.
now we're gonna go into presentations. I see Dave and Mike. Dave, you're hiding in here somewhere. You kind of came in a little bit with Dave Kanzer. The River District's gonna be talking to us about making snow. Dave Kanzer and Mike Itel. So with that, I'm gonna shut up and get out of your way and let these guys roll.
Thanks, Alden. Could I get screen share privileges, please? Is that possible? But I'm Mike Itel with the Colorado River District. I'm here with Dave Kanzer and Andrew Rickert, and I'll let Dave do the intro, and then I'll talk a little bit about cloud seeding, and then Andrew Rickert will talk about the statewide cloud seeding program.
Can't you just share? You gotta have privileges.
It said I got it now. I'm good to go. All right.
All right, well, good evening, everybody. This is Dave Kanzer, DK. I go by. I see some familiar faces and a bunch of folks that I don't know, so I'll do a quick introduction. I've been at the Colorado River District approaching 30 years, which is hard to believe. My latest title is Director of Science and Interstate Matters, so I'm very interested in your discussion about Big River and your issues. As part of that role, we are involved in all things Colorado River and all things snow science related to that. So essentially, Mike's going to run the slides here. You see the slate of folks that are going to speak to you tonight. I'm also going to try to introduce the next speaker as well, Jeff Derry, who's going to follow without confusing the topic. But really appreciate the time and the invitation to come talk about snow, because it's a really important issue. And I'm going to try not to tell you things you already know, but I think you know what I'm going to tell you. So go ahead, Mike. I'm going to tell you that the Colorado River District spans 15 counties and 3 major watersheds of the Colorado River. You've got 3 of our board of directors in the room there, and so very well represented. Maybe you don't know our mission, but there it is for you: to protect, conserve, and develop And that's what we're here to do, along with all of you, and provide services to Roundtable and stakeholders throughout the Colorado River District. Next one. And a big part of that, of course, is water resources. And water resources, again, as you know, is really dependent on snow. And these are really the issues that take our time day in and day out as a staff member. You know, the water supply that you all have, especially in the Yampa-White-Green, where except for the green, not a lot of storage, as you well know. So the snowpack is the storage that you have access to, and it's absolutely critical. So that white reservoir feeds and supplies the water supply throughout the year. It strongly impacts, you know, the amount of snow that we get impacts that imbalance that you hear about between water supply and water demand. And so we're talking about the water supply aspect of our water resources. How can we make that bigger? How can we grow the pie? And you all know, again, in Routt County, Steamboat, how important that is for the recreational economy, whether you're in channel fishing or whether you're skiing, all the way down past Rangeley, of course, and in all of your basins. And of course, we're faced with climate change. And as climate does change, it's warming, drying. You all know, you live it. That means snow change. So really what we want to talk about in a broad sense is snow science. And that's going to bring in both Mike, Andrew, and Jeff Derry to follow. You know, what the problems are. We've already talked about this variable climate, crazy changes from year to year in terms of our snowpack, how soil moisture and other aspects of our meteorology can really affect our ability and our water balance throughout the year. And so we need better forecasts. And of course, we need more snow, right? So the part of the solution is, you know, doing more work out there, whether it's through Airborne Snow Observatory, which is ASO that you've probably heard about, which is mapping the snowpack, whether it's mapping the dust on snow, the CODOS, the Colorado Dust on Snow program that Jeff Derry will talk to you about. And then it's connecting the data that we have and boosting the collaboration, like through the roundtables, through the state of Colorado, and through our partners in the lower basin. And so what we're doing today and every day is expanding our efforts, trying to mitigate the loss of snowpack, beefing up our snowpack and water resources through cloud seeding. And that includes research, a robust research program, and implementing programs throughout the West Slope and really throughout the West. And so to do that, of course, we need a solid funding source. So as we go to the next one, next slide here, I'm going to hand it over to Mike Eitel. Mike is now managing the cloud seeding program for the Colorado River District. So I'm going to shut up and just say thank you so much for inviting us to talk to you today. And I guess one thing I'll say before I hand it off is I also wear another hat, and that's with Jeff Derry at the Center for Snow and Avalanche Studies. I am the full disclosure, the board president of that nonprofit. So I also have a very vested interest in that discussion that Jeff is going to lead shortly after this. So two different distinct issues wrapped by research and science and the importance of snow. One, of course, to increase the snowpack, and the other is to understand the snowpack. So with that, I'll hand it over to Mike, and thank you again for your time.
Thanks, DK, and good evening, everybody. And thanks, Alden, for putting us on the schedule. And sorry about the little bit of glare. The sun's shining over here in Glenwood today. But we're glad to be here, talk about cloud seeding. And for me, this really brings together my passion for water. And I'm a big skier, and I came to Colorado to ski. And so this really allows me to kind of bring the two together. So it's kind of a neat program. And I've learned a lot about the science. I'm not here we're going to talk about cloud seeding, what it is, really briefly. I'm not going to dazzle you with some hard science. It's going to be real general topics, but talk about the science and why we're doing it and how it's done. And then I'm going to hand it over to Andrew Rickert to talk about the state's weather modification programs. And then I'll come back and talk a little bit more about the Central Colorado program. And I will preface that this is not here to ask you for money. This is here as an informational session for your roundtable meeting and something for you all to consider as a means of development of water supplies in the Yampa Basin. Why do we do it? It's not, I'm not here to sell you snake oil and tell you this is the thing that you have to do. But in fact, the science is very compelling, and we all know, and I'm preaching to the choir, that the snow's melting earlier. We got longer, frost-free days. We're irrigating longer, earlier in the spring and longer in the fall. And so, as you know, with that, the warming trend is you're going to lose more snowpack to sublimation, longer growing seasons. So your water supplies are really critical. And call it climate change or airification, but it's all about the drying of the Southwest right now that we're living and experiencing, even though we get lots of snow. But it's also been the science has proven for every degree in Fahrenheit you're losing about 3 to 5% of your stream flows associated with the runoff. And so this cloud seeding is really not, it's just another tool in the toolbox. It's not a silver bullet for water supply, but it makes sense. And it's something that I found that's pretty predominant throughout the West. There's quite a system of cloud seeding and weather modification going throughout the West and Central America right now. But it's what does it do? How is it done? And it's really more of an adaptation to what we're doing here. It's, in all of our benefit I call it squeezing the sponge. The clouds are the sponge, and you need to wring out as much moisture and swee out of that into the snowpack. And it really is one of the only true augmentation sources. When we talk augmentation in the water rights world, it's generally storage, but this actually is producing wet water that you would not normally have. It's cited in the drought contingency planning as a DCP as an augmentation source, and again, it's really in a climate change adaptation, and it's very the lower basin's very interested in it, as are we, and it also increases our recreational opportunities in Colorado. We all like our water, we like our rivers, we like our snow. Like I said, the science is compelling. Every storm is different. You can give it ranges a percentage of increased snow in the each event, but every storm is different, and it's all dependent on moisture, orographics, and wind directions. And as part of the cloud seeding program, you have to do the meteorology to determine whether or not it's time to turn on those generators. But in general, it's assumed that through the math and the studies that we can increase snowfall and the water supply by anywhere from 5 to 15%, depending on the storm. That is not a hard number, and again, it's variable, and it all depends on storm cycles. Lots of meteorology and lots of variability in when the snow falls, warming, and how it comes off and melts. But we'll let Mr. Derry talk about that later. A lot of people talk about the environment and how cloud seeding affects it, and a lot of folks immediately ask about water quality and is cloud seeding safe? Yes, it is safe. The primary ingredient that they vaporize is a silver iodide solution that is heated and combusted on ground-based generators. It's an inert, organic, solid material. And I will say that there's been a lot of cloud seeding going on for a number of years in Colorado, and we don't show any detrimental water quality effects. We would be recognizing that fingerprint, if you would. And the design and the hexagonal shape of the silver iodide really lends itself to to super saturating the clouds and causing those clouds to glaciate, as they say, in the cloud, and create something that seeds the clouds, and that's what enhances the snowfall. And again, you have to do the meteorology and determine when it's best to turn them on and off. And a lot of folks will immediately say, well, you're taking something from the folks on the eastern slope. No, it's been proven that it does actually benefit folks on the lee side. So there is a drift effect in the cloud seeding, and you get that directly around the cloud seeding, and it is downwind also, but it does not actually take water from the, at least the science shows that it's predominantly does not take the water from somewhere else. It's just making that storm more efficient, if you will. And otherwise it would not fall on the surface. But how do we do it? There's a lot of different methods in cloud seeding. Generally in Colorado, we use ground-based generators, but on the top there across, there's air-based. And we do have, I don't want to take Andrew's thunder away. He'll talk a little bit about it, but generally by airplane, there's a small program in Jackson County, but you either use ejectable flares, dry ice is in the middle coming out of the fuselage of the plane, and then you also have burn in place flares, and these vents are flown through the storms, and they have a wider dispersion. They also come with a higher price tag. And then on the bottom are the ground-based type generators that we use throughout Colorado, and they're either manually or remotely operated as technology has increased, and we've been able to use cellular technology. We've been able to put some remote generators up in areas that are not easily accessible in the winter, and that gives us better dispersion. But you can see the 3 different types, and they basically again, with a guy in the middle's working on the top of that, and then that's where all the vaporizer goes, and they use injectable silver iodide in a solution that doesn't freeze, and it's burned, and that's one of the primary ingredients in the mix. And that's one of the costs. As silver goes up, the cost of a cloud seeding program goes up a little bit. And from that, I'm going to introduce Andrew Rickert from the CWCB. Andrew, if you want to take over for the next couple slides, I'll drive. But Andrew's here to talk about how the state funds things.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mike. And good evening, everybody. And really appreciate you having us here to give you some information on weather modification. And I mean, I must say lately, I feel like weather modification is really starting to take off. The public is more interested. I have a lot more potential funding partners interested, local water conservancy districts interested, because as we look forward, I mean, we can all see the kind of role drought is playing, and everything we can do to combat that. And the science has proven that, cloud seeding works, and it's definitely something that we need to look to as a state to solve these problems moving into the future. And with that said, here's a current map of all the permitted weather modification programs in Colorado. As Mike mentioned, that top area, that little green spot, that is our Jackson County aerial program. But they actually just went through the process this last month of applying for a new permit for a ground-based program. So that will be the only permitted project in Colorado that will utilize not only aerial cloud seeding methods, but ground-based as well. So, that's going to be really interesting. I really look forward to getting our annual reports from them this year and seeing what kind of gains we get out of a mixture of both programs. But then you can see the other programs as well. So with the new ground-based, we currently have 7 permitted projects throughout the state of Colorado. 6 of them ground-based, 1 aerial. You can see the yellow is the CCMRB project, which is kind of what we're talking about tonight. But, projects all over the state, from San Juan Mountains down south. That brown area is Grand Mesa. We have our Gunnison in purple. And you can also see those 2 little spots within the yellow CCMRB. That is our Vail permitted project. So, a wide range all across the state. And, I'm constantly getting phone calls from people who want to start a new cloud seeding program, which is very exciting. Right now, so in the state right now, we have, we're looking at the Rio Grande area. We're looking at the St. Vrain left-hand area to, start kind of seeing what kind of seeding effects we can get on the east side of the Continental Divide. And then I wanted to just briefly share a little bit about that, how the permitting program works. Someone will come to me with interest in a cloud seeding program, and then we start going through the motions of actually permitting a new program. Once we, obviously the permittee has to have the right amount of experience, insurance, all of that stuff. That's when the state steps in and starts helping with the process. You have to advertise a notice of intent in the newspapers in the county with the target area, and then all the adjacent counties. That lets the public have a chance to really come and learn about what we're doing and voice any questions or concerns. So that's a big part of what I do is with the permitting. So, we're just always, constantly trying to expand and cover these, we do these tests, feasibility tests all around the state. There's a lot of areas that we could be cloud seeding that just right now we aren't. So constantly looking to expand. As Mike also said, I think GK touched on this as well. We get funding from a lot of people, and one of our biggest funding participants is the lower basin states. You can see those 4 agencies that contribute annually to weather modification programs throughout the state of Colorado. And, they're particularly interested in obviously seeding the Colorado River Basin, everything we can do to help strengthen that river. But this just kind of gives you an idea of funding. This was actually what they gave us this year. So you can see that first box, that $260,000, that's money they give us just to support ongoing operations. And then we get a lot of funding from them for a number of other things as well, from studies to actually, getting new equipment around the state, which is a huge part of cloud seeding, is just updating with the newest equipment available. But yeah, this just kind of gives you an idea of some of the other funding we get from lower basin states, which is great. And they are really supportive of Colorado's weather modification program, which is great to see. Mike, if you want to go to the next one. So I just put this together. This is just a quick graph, showing you, kind of giving you an idea of how many seeding hours go to each program. You can see the legend there on the right of all the different programs. You also probably noticed that in last year, water year 2021, the Vail Beaver Creek program, we did not get any funding from them. We are currently in talks with them to try to secure funding for not only this year, but future years as well. They got hit kind of hard with COVID pandemic. So, they were a little apprehensive to funding their program last year, but, I think they realized that, they might not be as concerned with actual stream flow, but I think, they've had the longest cloud seeding program in the state of Colorado dating back to 72, which, it shows that they've obviously been interested in this in quite a while. So we hope just to secure some more funding from them. But yeah, that just kind of gives you guys a quick overview of kind of what's currently going on in the state and how the permitting process works. But yeah, if there's any questions or anything at the end or however we want to handle that, but I'll hand it back to Mike for right now. Thanks a lot.
Hey, thanks a lot, Andrew. Appreciate that overview. And the larger scale picture helps, I think, folks see what's going on in the state. Now I'm going to talk a little bit more about that Central Colorado Mountain River Basin program. And again, I'm going to pop back to the slide. It's this yellow area here that predominantly covers all the central upper Colorado Basin. And it covers Vail, Beaver Creek, Breckenridge, Grand and Summit counties, and Eagle counties. It's a long program. Vail is its own permit within the greater CCMRB footprint, and their cloud seeding hours generally have been focused on their ski areas and the early season production. And unfortunately, again, they pulled their funding out, and so we've just lost a number of generating hours. And based on that previous graph, it's really, about half of the generating hours of the central program, if not a little bit more. In 2002, Denver Water in Colorado Springs kind of kicked this off, and again, it was drought driven. And again, as you go into drought, folks start looking for ways to increase water supply. And then after we settled the Colorado River Cooperative Agreement in 2012. The River District stepped in with a larger collaborative, and we've grown the program to what it is today. And we've brought in some other east and west slope entities, basically all the Trans Mountain diverters who act as the Front Range Water Council are our major participants, and they contribute into this program. And in 2012, we increased the permit area. And then in 2017, we went in and got our new permit, and these are 5 years these permit last. So in 2022, we are going to be up to redo the permit for the central program. And we can expand that program if possible, if needed, to other areas within the upper Colorado Basin. And it could include the Yampa White. As you've noticed in that map, you guys are directly to the west of the Central Colorado program. So it would be an easy add-in. I think it could even be a separate polygon if it had to be. But that's a potential option if you guys want to look into that. But how do you go about to do a cloud seeding program? And one is just what we're doing right now is getting out and talking to folks and developing interest, local partnerships, and seeing where the funding can come from. The state would obviously probably support something like this, and you ultimately would have to do perform a feasibility study, and we would bring in one of the weather consultants who would help perform that analysis, and they would go over the program, decide what's the most feasible, cost estimates, et cetera. And then you have to go actually and acquire that permit and do that notice of intent like Andrew was talking about. And then within that, you can then implement your program as needed and customize it. Because there could be hybrids in the state. Again, more aerial. Wyoming does a lot of the aerial applications. So coming into northern Colorado on those flight lines could be an easy add-on and maybe beneficial in the long run. And really, that's all we got to talk about today. We just Alden and Ken at the Water Congress had asked us to come give a brief overview, and you got the dust on snow coming up. But if there are any open questions, I think now would be that ample opportunity for that. And we know you're busy today too, so.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Dave. Questions?
Alden?
Nope. Who's online? That to your right? I keep looking up like.
Company, I appreciate the presentation. I'm going to throw a little cold water on this, and the pun is intended. I'm very much in favor of knowing about our snow and getting better information and using this improved technology to understand our snowpack and our runoffs and all of that. But I want to caution you guys and remind you that the western halves of Moffett and Rio Blanco, Garfield County, the range livestock industry can be very adversely affected if you guys are successful in creating us more snow. And while I want the snow in a year like this year, just to demonstrate it with $250, $300 a ton hay, I want you guys prepared to buy my hay, the additional hay, that when you cover up my grazing lands in the wintertime, you better be prepared to buy a haystack to feed my cows. And the two largest migratory elk herds in the world, the White River herd and the Black Mountain herd coming off of the Route Forest. DK, what I'm really, and Tom and Alden and Doug, what I'm really talking about is we want to be very thoughtful about what we do here, tinkering around, because while at first blush, everybody says we want more snow, but that comes at somebody else's expense, and we need to understand these unintended consequences. Thank you, Alden.
Thanks to you, right? Because you actually bring up something that Doug Munger brought to us several years ago, was the increased maintenance to do snow removal and where do you put it in your municipalities. That was something that I hadn't even thought about, but those are things that have to actually absolutely need to be considered as part of this. But as a society, I want to add this as well, if I could, please. You ain't going to do much if you don't have water. And so how do we get that managed in the middle here so we can cooperate and get something done? So T. Wright, thank you for bringing that up.
And Alden, that's a great question.
That everybody thinks that this is a panacea, that everybody wants more snow, and I want snow just as much as the next guy, but we suffer from the Utah ski industry, the Wasatch Front stealing the snow that should come to us, and then we got Wyoming covering up the upper Green River Basin. 17 was a primary example of a deep snowpack on the desert. and then it roads my farm on the Green River. So, as long as we're looking at all of the consequences, not just the benefits.
Understand. Someone in here had a hand up, Doug.
So I just wanted to echo, you know, number one, as a commissioner, I always wanted to make sure we had an off switch on this thing too. When we start having 212 inches of snow, we need to be able to turn this thing off. And the other thing is we've had a presentation at the River District, and I don't think the park range, where we're at is as conducive for snowmaking. And DK and you know, those guys know better than I, but I thought that our range wasn't as conducive for cloud seeding. And yeah, we'll get some cloud seeding. We'll dump more snow on the Platte River Basin in Jackson County. So yeah, I'm not saying no, but then, you know, I don't know how the cost benefit and the rest, and then just to make sure we got an off switch too.
Well, I'll get to you guys in just a minute. I see Ken had his hand up here for a bit. So Ken? It's on your mind.
Yeah, thank you. I want to make sure that we give these gentlemen an opportunity to follow up at some point in the future, or at least I think that would be the decision today. If we were to decide to do further investigation of what this weather modification cloud seeding program might look like up here in the Yampa-White and Green Basin, what would that look like? You know, could you bring us back a bigger picture? I mean, you gave us kind of an outline, but you know, what would be the expected cost and the number of different what types would you be doing, aerial or fixed or some of the remote control? What would be your proposal? I know you've learned a lot as you've gone through these efforts in the last few years. So what have you learned from that you would recommend for us so that we've got different opinions on the efficacy and the appropriateness. At least we could look at a specific proposal and then decide whether or not this was something that we wanted to further pursue. Because before I go out and spend time rounding up the ski area and other supporters, I'd like to have at least this roundtable say, you know what, this is probably worth investigating. We just want to make sure we don't drown poor T right out there in the Vermilion Basin.
No, those are all very, very good questions, and that's part of the feasibility study, Ken. And I would say that as part of the permitting process and being the permit holder, there are checks and balances built into the permit dealing with avalanche conditions for road passes. They don't seed under certain conditions. They turn off after a certain level of snowpack is reached. So those are parameters. And you know, and again, the rangeland question is a good one. I just was on a call with all the folks from the different basins in the states, and interestingly enough, in Utah, there's a large rangeland managers who actually implemented a program in a kind of a high desert area this year for range management specifically. So you know, yeah, and I don't think in the big picture the cloud seeding is gonna bury you in snow completely. It's really just squeezing an extra 5-10% out of that snowpack. And when you do the math at the end of the winter, it comes out to, you know, for the Central Colorado program last year, they estimated about an additional 100,000 acre feet of yield in the basin, and it's cost effective. The costs are like $250 an acre foot generated based on the hours. The Central Colorado program manages at about $250,000 a year as our base budget, and you don't always use all those hours for generating either. So, but yes, we can do that and give you a proposal on how to approach that with the consultants. We'd have to look for local sponsors. DK might have some more thoughts on the management of that feasibility study. So,
yeah, I mean, I think you all hit on the topics that are a recurring theme for participants and for, you know, water users. What we're doing tonight, of course, is sort of taking your temperature, responding to Ken and Al to provide this information. We'd be happy, I think, to work with, if y'all sort of green lighted us to prepare a proposal. We don't want to spin our wheels if you don't think that this is something you want to pursue. However, I think to be responsible water stewards and land stewards, it's something that, I think we should look at together. But as Mike just mentioned, we want a local sponsor. We want this to be something that you all support. It's not something that we're want to push on you. So this is just really a very preliminary discussion, and we'd love to get more feedback as we go. I know we don't have time tonight to chase down everything, but happy to come back with maybe a straw proposal with a roadmap that we might suggest for you all to consider.
More questions here, and we'll move on. Will?
I'll make it quick. When we say it increases the snowpack, are we talking about just the amount of snowpack? Or are we talking about the net precip that we're increasing by 15%? Does that make sense, that question?
Yeah, so if I can jump in on that, the way that we arrive at those numbers is an intercomparison of unaffected areas using SNOTEL data, which is typically the SWE, the snow water equivalent. So it's really both snow and water content that we're sort of chasing down. And so what I'm saying is you compare areas that are not cloud seeded to those that are seeded, and you look at the difference. And that is typically measured in percent increase in SWE, snow water equivalent.
Finally, Commissioner Moyer.
Yeah, more of a comment. This is a little bit along the lines of T. Wright's comment, but one thing I noticed in the presentation that to me is a red flag is who in the existing program is funding it. And it looks to me like it's predominantly geared towards Trans Mountain diversion, having water available for that, as well as very much geared to recreation. And I'm not opposed to recreation, but when the benefit is to reduce snowmaking, bottom line is I think when we have dead forests and no ability to store the excess runoff when we do get it, we ought to be looking at that first.
And that's exactly why I mentioned what I did earlier when we opened up to this. There's a much broader conversation here that I think needs to happen. This is one piece, and there's a whole level of new LiDAR technology that I know DK has presented to myself. I've seen it, and it's amazing where they can pinpoint spots within the mountains that actually, there's one range that every year it gets 20% snow in the range right next to it. Why? But there's something with that range that makes it dump a lot more snow there. Is there enhancements that we can do to that property or the property next to it that might be able to help us out? Create more shade effect by adding more forest health. That's why I'm like, this is a broader discussion here. Where's it gonna go? I don't know. But I think it's something that we need to work out, so.
Al, this is T. Wright.
Yeah.
Ken, I just want you to know I'm completely supportive of the investigation and working with these guys. I just want to make sure we look at unintended consequences.
Agreed.
That's very fair, T. Wright. And so with that, then I would move that we ask this group of representatives from the weather modification snow cloud or cloud seeding to bring us back a proposal in 2022 that would further explain what the involvement of the Yampa-White-Green Basin might look like, and a kind of an outline of how that might proceed for us to consider a more specific straw man proposal. That's my motion.
So do we need a motion?
I'll second that if we need one.
I don't know, because it's concept development. It's a matter of come back with your concept when you have it. Yeah, we want to hear more.
So I guess, Mr. Chair, if I could, then I guess maybe would be good, if maybe we have a voluntary committee or something that work, work together. If Ken wants to work on it, Frank wants to work on it, and we come up with, a group of people that could, channel the information back with DK and Mike and then have that conversation.
Ken, Frank?
I'd be happy to do that.
Frank, are you up for that?
I'd be happy to.
Okay, because I'd be happy to work with that too. I mean, because I want to
Please.
learn this thing. So,
Absolutely.
so we do have a motion, a second on here. So any more discussion? I mean, it stands. And we can just kick it down, we can rescind that if we need to, so. And we'll let it go to committee. The motion and second was for these guys to develop another plan, but work with Ken and Frank and myself to kind of develop a plan to come back to here, just to kind of further the discussion a little bit more.
Yeah, I think we owe it to ourselves to hear what the analysis is and whether it can be targeted to avoid some of the unintended consequences and yet maybe help in some other areas too. So how do we know unless we hear?
Correct. And what's the probability of increased yield within our basin without real injury?
So
Help me in on that, Alden.
So, Mr. Chair, so the motion's fine. I think that's a good idea. Maybe that way, I do think it needs to stay within right now, at least within the roundtable.
Okay.
So that way the motion would be good motion. It's given direction by the roundtable.
Okay. T-Right, what did you have there? I'm sorry, sir.
I want to be on the committee.
Okay.
Good idea.
So I don't even think we got to take action on it. It's gone to committee then.
We can vote on that motion.
Yeah, we can vote on the motion then. Yeah. All right, well, let's vote on the motion to kick it to the committee. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, thank you. And opposed, same sign. All right, sorry. We're doing all right. Let's keep going.
Well, thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
For that discussion and for that affirmative action. If I can just take one more second and introduce Jeff Derry, who just turned on his camera. He's going to talk about dust on snow, and the larger discussion is really about the Center for Snow and Avalanche Studies. And Jeff will tell you, it's got a board of directors, and I just noticed our other director, our vice president, Jeff Deems, is on as well. I thought it was curious that somebody mentioned LiDAR. I think it was Al. Jeff Deems is helping to put together as well as being on the board of Jeff Derry's Center for Snow, independently helps to run the Airborne Snow Observatory. So you've got several experts that are ready to talk to you about additional snow science and the impact on your water resources. So I'm going to hand it over to Jeff Derry.
Thank you. Jeff, before you go, I would like to say something to the group here. So with Jeff's presentation here, Steve is going to come up right after Jeff is done, and because there's a grant request with this as well. That's been through the grant committee. So we just figured since it's all in one, we just incorporate it all and help us kind of move forward. So with that, Jeff, please, you have the floor.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you all for making the time for me today. Thank you, DK, for the introduction. And thank you for considering this application. I'm with the Center for Snow and Avalanche Studies, and we are here for the Colorado Dust on Snow project, where we monitor dust conditions, dust on snow, and snow throughout the state of Colorado. Up in your neck of the woods, Rabbit Ears Pass is our monitoring site, which we've been going there since 2006, digging snow pits and assessing and keeping track of the dust. Our Senator Beck study basin down the lower left there in the San Juan Mountains is our study basin, where we call it our Sentry site, where we do intensive dust on snow monitoring, snowpack monitoring, climate monitoring, and also where we host a lot of research, snow research in the basin. First, I'll start off with just the general request we're making for this WSRF funding request. Our approach is to approach each of the roundtables in Colorado. So we are in the process of approaching each roundtable and requesting $15,000 from each roundtable. And along with that, we will ask the state to match each contribution with $15,000 as well, to where the total will be 120,000 total from the roundtables and 120,000 from the statewide account, totaling $240,000 for this request. And the remainder of the match money to make the budget for this endeavor will come from our organization, Center for Snow and Avalanche Studies, we are funded by a number of other entities like water districts, the Bureau of Reclamation, Denver Water, and a number of other long-term supporters. I'd like to point out too, real quick, that this is a 4-year project duration. We are a very efficient, relatively small nonprofit. And so we have every intention of stretching this out as far as we can and just squeezing every penny which is what we do. We're a small nonprofit, we squeeze every penny we get. And so this is for a 4-year endeavor. Okay, moving on for a quick rundown of just what the project is. Why do we do what we do? Well, given that solar radiation dominates snowmelt, it's often confused sometimes that air temperature melts the snow, but solar radiation is what really melts the snowpack. And given that dust on the snow surface controls how much solar radiation is absorbed or reflected back into the atmosphere as the primary driver of warming and melting the snowpack, by us monitoring where the snow or the dust is within the snowpack, and when it comes to the surface, we can very accurately determine when the stream flows are going to either decrease or increase. And so, as you can see by the picture in the lower left there, this is what we do. We go dig snow pits around the state of Colorado, and we look for dust. We know where the dust is in the snowpack, and then what we do is applied science, meaning we don't sit on this data. The next day, after being in the field, the next day we write summary reports of our observations in the field and our assessments as to what we think it means for snowmelt 1 day out to 2-3 weeks out down the road. And so this data is available on our website. When we send out email notifications stating that we've posted an update to our website also hosts web pages for each monitoring site that we have around the state, where a lot of information is kept as a reference material for folks as well as myself. This data feeds into long-term trends we are gathering data for, as well as trying to compare seasons. If we see one season, it looks like another season that we've had in our period of record, it kind of helps us determine what to expect in the season that we're currently in, for example. So one reason why we go, and one advantage, I should say, of going and digging snow pits, which is very labor intensive, is it gives you a predictive ability of what's coming. Airborne information like ASO data, Airborne Snow Observatory data, is incredibly beneficial, and it flies and captures the entire watershed, and it also measures reflectivity of the snow surface. And you can also get at that a little bit with satellite information, and which is all very incredibly useful. But digging a snow pit helps give you the predictive ability of what's to come, because you can see underneath the snow surface, and you can track that dust and forecast when it'll come to the surface, affecting snowmelt timing and rates. With dust typically making the snow melt faster and making the snow melt earlier in the season. And also too, studies have shown out of our study basin that dust can make the snow leave the landscape about 2 weeks to 50 days earlier than it would have normally. So again, with the snow leaving the landscape early in the season, that exposes vegetation and soils earlier in the season, leaving them susceptible to a very thirsty atmosphere that we've been seeing these last 20-25 years, and that increases and starts evapotranspiration rates earlier in the season. So that's water that would actually go towards our streams. It's actually going towards evaporation and transpiration of the plants. What else here? Real quickly, that plot to the lower right shows how dust on snow plays out on the hydrograph. That blue line there is stream flow, and that red line is albedo measurements or reflectivity of the snow surface. And those data came from our stations in our study basin, where we collect radiation data, solar radiation data. And the closer the higher that red line spikes, or closer to 1 it gets, the cleaner the snow surface. Has an albedo of 1 or near that is very clean snow surface, very shiny. And you see the responding stream flow goes down. But you see that red line go down, meaning a dirtier snow surface, you see stream flow go up. So you can just see that interplay throughout the season here. In 2016 was this example. And it's just like a 1-for-1, albedo up, stream flow down, and vice versa. And we also collect when we go out into the field and note dust conditions around the state. We also collect dust samples for the USGS analysis, our partners for a very long time, where they take the samples and they analyze it, and they could source the dust, tell where it came from. They look at the mineral composition of the dust and assess how it affects albedo. And it's a very rich source of data that's still giving us a lot of information even today. We started doing this for them as partners since 2011. And what's very interesting is just this year, they discovered microplastics in the samples. And so unbeknownst to us, since 2011, we've been collecting not just dust samples in the snow, but microplastic samples in the snow. And so this is the first time they noticed this. And so we are on a whole new avenue of research into microplastics because of this rich data set that we have. And so I just think this is a great example of the benefits of collecting long-term data such as this that can be very informative and useful years and years and years down the road. If you don't collect the data, once the snow melts, it's gone. You can't go back and collect it. Okay, I'll keep on moving here, keep us on time. Just real quick, just to give one example of how our data is used, we feed data to the Bureau of Reclamation on a daily basis. Our meteorological stations upload its data to the Bureau of Rec hourly. And every day, nearly in springtime, we report on dust on snow conditions to the Bureau of Rec folks in the Durango office. And we've been doing this since 2019. And they have found that the tools that we provide allow them longer lead time for reservoir operations. Of course, it has greatly improved assessing the water supply forecasts that they receive from the NOAA forecast centers. And it has allowed them to achieve higher and longer environmental and endangered species in-stream flow targets, as well as optimize stream flows for recreational use, because they know, again, when the snow's melting, when they're going to see that water in the streams. I won't spend much time on that lower right plot there, just to say that just recently the Colorado Ag Producer Survey received their survey results. And they asked the question to participants, and the question was, what do you see as the greatest threat to being able to continue irrigating your land? Well, 66 of the respondents responded to less water due to changing precipitation and temperature patterns. And I would just put forth that this is what we monitor and keep track of. And I would also suggest including dust, since it determines largely when the snow leaves the landscape and melts. I'll spend just one slide here describing what we do in the Cinderbeck, our Cinderbeck study basin, where we have 3 or 4, we have 2 highly instrumented meteorological stations and a stream gauge. And these climate stations have been in place for nearly 20 years now. The data is uploaded, like I mentioned, to the Bureau of Rec folks, National Weather Service, but we did in place about 20 years. So we are starting to see some nice long-term trends with this data. We serve as a test bed for new instrumentation development. That picture in the upper left there The station in the foreground is USGS NGWAS, Next Generation Water Observing System station that they just installed 2 weeks ago. And they set it next to our station, which is the tower there, to assess how well their sensors are working and how well they work in the field. So that's a good example of these stations USGS are deploying around the whole Upper Colorado Basin. So this is a great opportunity for them to assess, how well the sensors will work for them. We host a lot of research. Like I mentioned, one example of that is a Airborne Snow Observatory has largely developed their methodology and instrumentation in our basin as well as in California. And still they continue to fly over our base for ground truthing ability of our station data and observations whenever they can. And when they can't do that, they sometimes use our data for dialing in their models. Another interesting project that we've been hosting the last few years is a NASA SnowX project. NASA wants to develop a snow or a satellite that measures snow from space. But to do that, they need to assess what combination of instruments would work on a satellite. And so to do this, they fly over our basin while we're on the ground collecting ground truthing data so they can assess the functionality of those sensors. So just a quick rundown of what we do in our research basin, which has a direct benefit to the whole state of Colorado. Things that we do here inform operations around the entire state or provide the venue for research for new technology. So I will keep it short, hopefully under 10 minutes or so that was. And I'll go back to the funding slide, and thank you for your time, and hopefully you find this project worthy of your support.
Go ahead, Steve. Oh, yes, we should open up for some comments. Questions online or here in the room? Yes, Sean.
Where is the dust coming from?
Up in your neck of the well, mainly in Colorado, it mainly comes from the desert Southwest, northern Arizona, southern Utah, northern New Mexico is the primary dust source region for Colorado. And Steamboat and the Rabbit Ears Pass can see that dust from way down south. But also in your neck of the woods, you have another dust source, and that's the Uinta Basin. You can see dust events coming straight across from the west from the Uinta Basin. And so that's how we determine, that's a good example of our partners with USGS. The samples we supply to them, they're able to analyze the mineral composition and to determine exactly where it comes from. Very, very well pinpointed. There's a lot of subregions in their analysis of where the dust comes from. So they can really pinpoint it to a very, very close degree around the landscape.
Anything else? Anybody online?
Kent has a question.
Who? Kent.
Yes, hello. Thanks for this. And first off, sorry for my late arrival to the roundtable meeting. I had other work that had to take place, but thank you, Jeff, for this. This is great. As part of the Friends of the Yampa, we have hosted at our Yampa Basin Rendezvous, Mackenzie Stiles in the past, plus Jeff Deems, talking about dust on snow. And so I'm very familiar with it, and I've seen that the grants committee does recommend us supporting this, which I do support it. And my work with Steamboat Powder Cats, where we ski up on Buff Pass, we see these dust on snow events, and it definitely is a cancer on the snow. And I think it is beneficial for us to look at this as a better measurement for our snow water content in the future. It definitely, when we see these events, we definitely see the impacts on that snow. My question to you, Jeff, is, this grant for your total grant is $274,000. You've been doing this research for some time now. Where have you been getting the money beforehand? You're just now coming to us and asking for this money. Is this money gonna be for this coming year? Or is it for several years in the future? Did you lose a grant from the past? What's going on here?
Yeah, good question. Typically, our budget, usually our funding comes from three main sources. And the first source is water districts, and we are very appreciative of the very long-term support of water districts around the state. About another third of our funding comes from the CWCB in general, whether it be the severance tax fund. A number of years ago, we did receive a water supply reserve account funding back in 2016, and that was very much appreciated, and we did a lot of great work with that support. So largely, that third chunk of our budget comes from CWCB, and then the other third typically comes from piecing it all together. The Bureau of Rec I mentioned is a big supporter. Denver Water is a big supporter. We applied to a lot of smaller grants, whether it just be like the Telluride Foundation, the Ballantine Fund, just like $1,000, $2,000 here and there. And researchers who do research in our study basin pay a user fee. It's not much, it's a couple $1,000, but you get a few researchers in there, it adds up. So we piece the other third together. And so our total operating budget on an annual basis is about $150,000. And to operate the Colorado Dust on Snow project, it takes about $120,000 a year. And so that's about what we're looking at here. This is a 4-year project that we're proposing, and we would supply the other match to meet that total of about $130,000 a year. If that answers your question.
That sure does. Yeah, thanks for that.
Hey, any more
There's a
questions?
question online from Jay Sheehan. He's wondering does fire ash affect the snowpack?
If what affects the snowpack?
The fire ash from all of the fires we've been having the last few years.
Yes, any impurity on the snow surface that can affect the albedo of the snow surface. And you can see that not just with dust, but with ash from the burn area, debris from the forest. And of course, all that, each that material has a different effect, if you will, on the snow surface about how much solar radiation it allows to be absorbed or be reflected. So it all varies how it affects the snowpack warming and melting. But any impurity, yes, can affect the albedo, hence the snow melt.
Thank you.
Okay, Jeff, can you quit sharing so we can put up the grants proposal?
There you go.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, go to the next slide.
Lag time issues now.
Oh, giddy. Okay, so for tonight, I just want to remind everybody that there's a summary of the grant meeting that was in your packets. It's out online as well. I did a one-page summary for the Pothook grant, a one-page summary for the CSAS, and then I did a one-page summary of for this letter of support for the CASO folks, as well as I put the draft, their draft version of a letter of support out there for you to look at. So if you want to understand more about the grants, that information is out there online, and at least the 2 grants we're voting on were included in the packet. The other stuff, I think, I added Monday, so it probably didn't make it into the packet. So
So we'll talk about the funding. I know everybody likes to know where we're at with the funding before we vote on anything. And then we just had the grant presentation. So we need to vote on that, and then we'll see a pothhook measuring device that Jonathan will be talking about, and then we'll do the letter of support. So next slide, Patrick. So the summary documents in your folder, like I said, thanks to everybody on the grant committee. We had a lot of hard work and a lot of last minute changes. And the letter of support we didn't even hear about till last week. So we got everything done for tonight's meeting, thank goodness. And the grants committee unanimously recommends funding both projects at the level that are being presented tonight, as well as providing a letter of support for Castle's project. So go ahead. So we haven't really gone very far in our $500,000. So if we vote on both of these projects today, we will end up with, we'll spend about $25,000. We'll have about $475,000 of that. And we have $27,250 in our COVID funds yet to do. So we won't even be through the COVID funds coming out of our grant amount. And then both of these have state share amounts with them. So we're going to use about potentially $31,000 of that. So you can see in this CSAS dust on snow, be 15,000 out of our funds, 15,000 would be the Yampa-White-Green state share amount, but they're really asking for 120,000 and 120,000, and they're matching 274,000. So the total grant amount that they're looking at is 514,000 with 8 basin roundtables presenting. So their matches are 69.5% for the basin roundtable match and 53.3%. So they're putting in more than half of the money on this grant. Their grant scored 37 points, and the pothhook one scored about 41.4, I believe. So just over 41. So both of them were pretty good projects. Go ahead, Patrick. So, so you've heard the presentation by Jeff Derry. The required action summary would be a motion and a second for the approval of this. I wrote a motion up there. You can use it or not. And then I just made the note that there's 8 basin roundtables. North Platte decided to pull out at the last minute, so naturally all of everybody's slides had to change. So any questions on this yet, Jeff?
Refresh my memory. I remember in the old days, we did a first reading and a second reading. Do we do that anymore, or is the grant committee replace that?
So the grant committee essentially is the first reading. And we try to do as thorough a job as we can. And then we put the summary together, but really the grant meeting is the first reading. And then this would be deemed, I guess, the second reading. But the problem is with the roundtable schedule as full as it is, these guys are only allowed 3 slides. Now, Jeff was just presenting his idea for the very first time, and he was already on the agenda. But like Jonathan Bowler in the pothhook, they get 3 slides in about 7 minutes to present. We've got about 4 or 5 minutes for questions, and then we vote on the measure. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, so this is up for final vote tonight.
Yes.
And realize we put an awful lot of effort in developing them. Steve, and I know the grant committee developed a matrix, for scoring that thing, and it's vetted pretty darn well by the committee. So yeah. And that's actually created quite a significant amount of efficiencies and assistance for people to go through the grant process, in my opinion. So that's what I've seen.
Yeah.
I move we accept your motion as written, Steve.
Can you read the motion? I don't want to be I don't want to be the one making the motion. Could you read the motion for me?
So I move that we recommend approval of the grant request for the CSAP Stuff on Snow Research Project involving $15,000 for the Yampa-White-Green Basin Roundtable WSR funds and $15,000 of the statewide account.
Longer second.
Yeah. Okay, discussion. Anybody online? Anybody else in the room? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor of supporting this grant, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Thank you. Nice work, all. Good.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you very much. I much appreciated. Have a good night, everybody.
Excellent.
All right, thank you. Keep my presentation up, would you? Oh, you're gonna pull up Jonathan's?
Yeah. What do you want?
Yeah, let's pull up Jonathan's. I just have a slide to introduce him, he can introduce himself. So Jonathan Ballor, you voted for him earlier tonight to be a out of the basin rep. But he's, yeah, I think that's the one. Yeah, like, so an introduction slide and a question slide. So Jonathan, it's all yours.
All right, thanks, Steve. I appreciate that. And thanks again for running my technology here for me. It's a big help. This first slide here kind of shows the playing field that we're working with the Wyoming-Colorado state line cutting right through the middle of our water conservancy districts. And so I work as the water administrator through the irrigation season for the Savory Little Snake River Water Conservancy District, which encompasses areas of both Wyoming and Colorado. And I also work with the Pothook Conservancy District for the Colorado specific interests. And so that's who I'm kind of representing for this application. And for the measuring device that we're hoping to install and start collecting data with, that will be there. You can see the point of diversion marked on the map just over the Colorado line in Moffett County. And so it's about the last point of diversion within the entire Savory Little Snake Conservancy District. So just like any point that you might find at the end of the ditch, this is the diversion at the end of our district. And so it can be a real challenge to get water there. Jeff had some great descriptions of just the value of data, and we're hoping to kind of get on that same train, let the data tell us the questions that we need to answer, and hopefully through that start to get some really good long-term information that we can begin to better understand the hydrologic pathways that exist in our watershed up here. So just a little coverage there. You go ahead and jump to that next slide. Someone mentioned earlier when we were discussing or doing the introductions, just how important water is. Water is life, and up here in the Little Snake Valley, that really encompasses human and non-human life. We've got a really great social ecological system. 146 years of appropriated water use in the Little Snake River Valley. This particular measuring device on the Trow ditch, that ditch's water rights are 136 years old. So there's quite a long history of humans moving water across the landscape, and quite a bit of wildlife and natural systems have developed around that as well. More than 14,000 irrigated acres, another 6,500 of those acres that are irrigation dependent wetlands. Like you can see those sandhill cranes, we're all familiar with those throughout the whole Yampa-White-Green Basin, and same here in the Little Snake. We had some tagged that were found to fly down there to the Bosque del Apache in New Mexico and back. And so, that those connections and those systems extend a lot farther than just our valley as well. Really the diversity of that supports both us and the non-human community function. It's really something that we'd like to try to understand better. And so the measuring devices, both the static one at the trowel and a portable one to be able to use on, you know, areas that don't have either that are incoming small tributaries or ones that flow just ephemerally throughout the season. We'd like to have portable device to be able to get a feel for those as well, and really start to build a database and a set of knowledge that allows us to understand what any given precipitation event or irrigator decision might have on the other irrigators and the other systems within our district here. Yeah, you can jump onto that. So everyone knows knowledge builds power. I think that power really comes from the relationships that we can begin to understand. The more we understand how we fit into it, the more power we can have over our resource, our autonomy of the resource use. And you know, that starts with that knowledge. And so in 2021, this past year, we had 135 days of direct flow and irrigation diversion data. And you can see in that photo there at the top, a lot of it on most of our diversions is just me running out to measuring devices and taking note of the flows at that particular time. It could be once a week or, you know, up to 6 or 7 times a week, depending on how many changes have been going on. But we did a pretty good job, 135 days, and we're hoping to be able to have that be more of a real-time data acquisition and allow us to make better decisions at a much faster pace and with more information. What was something of interest this year, we all felt it is a historically low water year. The gauge on the Little Snake near Lilly, Colorado, it's got a 99-year record of data. It showed the third lowest peak runoff in history in that 99 years. So you can see there, 1934 was the lowest, 996 CFS, and otherwise we were tied with 2002 for a peak runoff of 1,120 CFS. What benefited us this year was about a month later that runoff came than it did in 2002. So that bought us some time. And we also had the high savory stored water that wasn't available in 2002. And that proved to be extremely useful for irrigation this year and really helped to, you know, make something out of what might have been a really dismal year up here. With that, at these lower points of diversion that tend to be on the Colorado side, a lot of those irrigators, just through kind of, you know, oral tradition and things like that, said that this year's hay harvests were higher than others. And as you can see from those runoffs, you know, those other years would have all been more water, but we were able to get more hay this year with less water, just from the attention that we put onto it and the knowledge that we built from that data collection. So I have a pretty firm belief that the more that we can increase that knowledge, the better we can do with our water deliveries and turn the agricultural economy here in the Little Snake Basin. And we did with that stored water, we ended up having 37 days of high savory water. Even that was cut short this year on us, and we were flowing about 40% of what we might expect if we were getting a full appropriation of what the total storage amount might be from the high savory. But even with that small amount, we had a total of 8,835 acre feet of both native and released water as incoming flows into our district. And throughout our measurements, we actually measured and diverted about 500 acre feet over that. And so we were showing about 106% resource efficiency when we work together as a district. And, you know, one of the phrases you hear over and over throughout the year is, you know, share and share alike. And it can start to sound a little cliche at times, but it really, when you see these numbers and see what happens when we work together and treat the Conservancy district as, you know, more a part of that hydrologic unit, we can really increase the resource efficiency and make better use throughout the district. really benefit everyone involved that way. So we hope to bring those numbers up quite a bit. And in 2022, I have no doubt we'll do better. I hope that we don't fall, in that second lowest water year this year, be the only way we could do worse there. So I'm hoping we'll do better on that. But also we'll do better with our own administration. And I think just as we all understand more what that knowledge can bring to us through those increased efficiencies, we can work together better as a community too to continue to increase those. So this grant request that we're asking for, which I'll talk about on this next slide, it's really going to help us accomplish that improvement through just better data, faster decision making, improved communication across the state lines, and being able to apply those both into immediate day-to-day decisions and also in long-term decisions as we talk about resiliency and water resiliency throughout the years. So the request that we're making through the pot hook here, $10,000 from the Yampa-White-Green Roundtable and an additional $16,100 from the state fund. And we've got about $27,200 in matching funds. Much of that's in-kind services and installation and things like that. We've got to improve some access, but there's also some cash on board towards that as well. Total project, $53,300. And what that's going to afford us is a permanent stage discharge sensor and recorder with telemetry for remote access at the trial ditch, which this past year was a real point of decision for both Wyoming and Colorado. It was almost any time the two states were discussing appropriated water use, the trial was always kind of the measuring standard for how much was coming across state lines. It's a really important part to get those interstate agreements dialed in. And also that portable stream flow meter for remote measurements. And that's really going to be, I think, our biggest tool that helps us to better understand our return flows and be able to start to identify where the water that we're putting on these fields earlier in the season is coming out later in the year. And we can absolutely see that happening visually. It's evident. And so we'd like to start to be able to quantify that and be able to use that quantification to benefit our own economies and the ecosystems that they support. Create that baseline data and over the years, hopefully initiate that into a multi-year study, be able to understand how the water moves across our landscape, both that's coming from native precipitation and stream flow, and also our own activities through stored water, but also when one particular irrigator turns water on or off, how does that affect the downstream neighbors? And so that's the way that we can start to work together better and also work together better within our natural systems up here and really have just mutual benefit across the board just from this improved knowledge and data collection that this grant request would afford us. So we're pretty excited to start to build these bigger baseline data collection and be able to add it on to some of the other telemetry that we have in the system already, which this last slide, those pins are, the red ones are all either USGS or state telemetry gauges. So those all have remote access. The white ones are a variety of snowtail sites that we have available to, kind of make predictions based on the snowpack. But what's telling about this little graphic here is there's nothing downstream. We have no online or remote access to data beyond about Dixon is where that last downstream red pin would be. And so we're looking to start to get some better information downstream, especially on that Colorado side of the line. So that's what we're hoping that the roundtable would accept this request and help us get this together. I'm really excited that, when we do get it in place and start to pull that data to be able to bring that information back and, hopefully it'd be applicable to other districts across the Yampa-White-Green Basin as well. But we're really learning a lot about our system, and it's pretty fascinating information, and just love for y'all to be a part of it and share whatever information we can that we find out. So,
Thank you.
Questions? I'm glad to field those.
Go ahead, Tom.
So at the grant committee meeting, I found this really intriguing. I think it's, we're grappling right now with the return flows, how to measure, and we always think about monitoring wells. I think what he's doing there might be in some key locations in our basin, some really good way, completely different than we thought of before, to see what the effects of return flows are. I'm thinking of Morgan Bottom is one place where that remote sensing. And so I think, and Jonathan did just volunteer to come back in a year and give us a report out. I think we need to, not only is it a good project, I think we can hear the rest of the basin.
I was on the grant committee for that, and I agree. I was really impressed. When you saw the whole big picture of what he's trying to do, I was really impressed, and I think it really helps, especially agriculture, irrigated agriculture.
We spent 2 hours on this, on his presentation alone at the grant committee.
It was well received.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That just doesn't seem like a surprise.
Yeah, we thought you were there.
Bill Myers, what's up, man?
So I wanted some little bit of clarification on if this is going on the Little Snake River or if this is going on the Trowel Ditch. I wasn't quite clear on that.
The permanent stage discharge recorder is going to be on the Trowel Ditch diversion. And the portable meter is more to be able to get those in-stream flow measurements at have more flexibility as to the locations for those in-stream measurements.
Okay, so it's not going on the Little Snake River.
Not the permanent device will go on, it'll be attached to a stilling well on the Trowel Ditches measuring device, which is it's an 8-foot partial flume that they have there.
So they already have a measuring device. I'm struggling to figure out the direct benefit to Colorado water users if it's just on one ditch. What's that going to tell us about return flows into the river if it's actually on diversion?
Right, yeah, that one won't have much information for us about return flows. Other than what it would act like is kind of your summation line in a spreadsheet almost, where the Trowel Ditch and why we want to have such real-time information on it, it fluctuates heavily based on what the ditches above it divert and where the water along that ditch is being released. So the ditch directly above is the West Side Canal. And depending on what users are pulling water at the time, the Trowel Ditch can go up and down 25 CFS, putting us into and out of interstate conflicts and calls on the river within hours. And so sometimes we miss those, or that will become our data point that then we quickly move on from, but we'll all be making decisions. So like myself and the Colorado commissioners who are, also interested in the amount of water coming out of that diversion, we're always kind of stuck with whatever that last point of data was for us. And the Trowel is a pretty remote location, especially for your commissioners out of Craig. And even for us, it takes me about an hour round trip to get down there. And so it can be a tough one to give the full attention to. And also to give your full attention means you have to neglect these upstream areas a little bit. And so it kind of acts, what having that telemetry would allow us to have a constant reading that's telling us what's happened at the Trowel, which allows us to pretty much make every decision for the upstream diversions would be based on that. So it kind of acts as our bottom line, that we can make other decisions based on that information. And right now, and like I showed in that slide, being able to pull record hay on historically low water years is really just based on the amount of attention that we give to each measuring device. And so the telemetry would give us real-time, year-round attention to that diversion, which is really critical for both states' water use.
That kind of answers my question. It's a data point to kind of reflect what's going on in the river. Well, my other question, I guess, is can you kind of quantify how many like Colorado water users are going to benefit from this versus how many Wyoming water right users would potentially benefit? Like, is it 10 to 1090? Is it 20 to 80? I'm just trying to find the benefit to Colorado, it's really trying to dig down and find that.
So maybe I can answer it. So Aaron Light wrote a letter of support for this project. And her water commissioners, who you might know, will be hopefully utilizing the information.
For what purpose? I mean, if they're using the information, I don't understand what he's using it for, but what's the interest of the Division of Water Resources in this information as well? Because we're looking at a project that's right on the state line. I'm following where Will's going.
Yeah,
I can help with that too. So a lot of the times when we're discussing the importance of measuring, so basically the river at this time of year would be completely diverted into the trough ditch. So when water gets low, the trough ditch is the senior rights, down to, sorry, I'm just grabbing my numbers. 1885. So when we get down to that point and the river below the trough ditch is now dry and the whole thing is diverted into the trough diversion, that's when it's really important for us to know how much they're diverting, because it could be over the appropriated amount, or it could be under, but it kind of becomes the river at that time of year. And so if we were to put this device on the river itself, say right below the trough diversion, it would only give us the information that we need when there's excess water in the system. Because as soon as we get down into any level of appropriated use, this is pretty much where the river would dry up. And then again, it's back to those return flows is what's feeding the like the 2-bar major down lower and things like that. There'll be sections of dry riverbed for miles before that water starts to show up again. And so those are the dynamics that we hope to understand better. And also, that first part there about the river being dry right beneath it is why it would be more useful to us to have it on the diversion than in the main flow of the river, which wouldn't be very useful unless there was high water flowing.
So it'll help Wyoming manage water.
Yeah, we have so that's kind of in the bigger presentation, part of this and the difficulty is that we've got irrigators from 2 different states that make up a singular community. I don't think so much that we separate it, like it'd be hard for us to separate it quite that much. And so the political barriers and regulations that we have coming from both sides of that line, it makes it hard. It makes it difficult to balance the water use very well. And, so this one, although I guess it could seem that way, the lower users who this year all reported increased hay crops were largely Colorado users. And so that's kind of the idea here, is to make sure that we can maintain those proper amounts of diverted water for the lower lower river users, which are largely in Colorado. And I don't have an exact number, I'm sorry about that. But there's Colorado users on the West Side Canal, on the State Line Canal, and on the Trow Ditch as well. And those are all members of the Pothook Conservancy. So if Jay was on, or Glenda, they might have a better idea of the exact numbers. I wouldn't want to throw something out that wasn't accurate for you.
I'm gonna call for a timeout here in a moment, okay? We spent 3 times the amount of time on this grant right now than what we've allotted for it. And I still have more presentations tonight. So what are we gonna do, folks? We have some
Mr.
concerning
Chairman,
questions.
Ms. T. Wright, I'll move to approve the grant as supported by the grant committee.
Okay, so we got a motion and a second on the table here to approve the grant as is presented right now. Recommend approval of grant request of Pothook Water Conservancy District measuring device project involving $10,000 of Yampa-White-Green Basin Roundtable, WSRF funds, and $16,100 of statewide account WSRF funds. Any other discussion? Yes, Jeff.
With respect to Will's reservations, I still think it's $10,000, and I call the question.
Okay, any other discussion? Anybody online?
Kent had a question.
Yes, Ken.
Yeah, thank you. Good to see you, Jonathan. Jonathan and I were part of CMC back in the day together. You know, I had similar questions that Will had. Your last slide that you provided, Jonathan, was awesome. I did notice that there's lots of monitoring devices in Wyoming, none in Colorado, and this will be the one in Colorado. And having Aaron's recommendation to support this does help my cause. You know, as the rec representative, I understand there's not much rec going on below there, as well as the environment at lower flows of the Little Snake. It definitely dries up. But my question to you is there operating costs per year? As my first question. My second one, did the trowel ditch put in any money for this, or is that all part of the Pothook, I'm assuming?
The Trow Ditch Company, thanks, Kenton. It's good to see you too. The Trow Ditch Company, they do have some of that matching fund. They have some cash, and also the in-kind of helping to improve the access and get it so that we ties into your operating costs. There's not much in that. The state of Wyoming, and to your question with the different states, so this Colorado, we were hoping was going to house the information on their online site. That's where a lot of the operating costs are, just in the cloud storage and the satellite connectivity to be able to make this available online. However, after we start working on this, Colorado said they were not going to be able to do that because of the costs and the technology involved. That's a little over my head. So Wyoming's going to house that information, but it's still publicly available. Anyone can log on and check that. So those are the largest costs, though. Otherwise, these devices are really, you just kind of have to swap out batteries occasionally. It runs on like a kind of a snowmobile size battery, and you can swap those in and out. And really they'll last a whole season. The recommendations that I've seen on these are to just pull them after the season and through the winter, and then reinstall in the summer or at the beginning of the irrigation season again. And not the whole system, but just the recording devices and the electronic part. So that would be some amount of operating costs, would just be getting it set up and taken down at the beginning and end. My position with the Conservancy District, I'd be monitoring and upkeeping this just as part of the duties of the job. And then all that information would be housed and available publicly on the Wyoming's SEO Flow website.
Okay, we do have somebody that we're going to call the question now. So we're end of comments on this if we can, please. So All in favor of approving this grant for the Pothook Water Conservancy District, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, nay? Motion passes. Okay, we're good to go. Steve,
Thank you all.
got a brief letter of support here. We got to keep going here.
Okay, so Jeff is online. We were concerned he had something going on earlier. So Jeff was here in January, so you can look at January 13th meeting. He was here and talked about this, and I just want to point out that the last sentence of the notes that Megan took says, the collaborative will be seeking funding from each basin later this year. So it's later this year. So the grant that they're getting matching funding from Northern Water, Denver Water, USGS, and the Department of Energy. You can see they've got 14 snow-on flights, 15,000 kilometers of cubic kilometers of snow-free basin. So they're doing non-snow flights, they're doing snow flights. So you can see what they're doing, what they're going to do in the grant. Go ahead, Patrick. So I just wanted to show a map just to say we are involved. Here's the Yampa. So these are the areas that they'll be mapping with their aerial flights throughout the year. Go ahead. And then I just want to point out that they're actually applying for a water plan fund grant. So it's not costing our basin roundtable anything. It's just a letter of support. So we got this letter last week. We ran it by all of the grant committee. And we all recommend that we would provide a letter of support. Could you pull up my summary real quick? Go to the third page. That's the page I want. So the only thing that we struck out of there was enthusiastic. So, but typically we try to get this message right. Alden will write the letter and he can wordsmith it as he feels it is necessary. So the grant committee, can you go back to my other slide? I just wanted to show that. That was the only word that they had problems with, that anybody questioned. So the draft letter of support is on the website, reading material. And I just asked for a motion to supply the letter of support for the 2022 Castle project, supporting the efforts to obtain a grant from the CWCB Water Plan Fund to pay for additional flights to obtain more measurement data.
This is T. Wright. I'll enthusiastically move.
All right, T. Wright, thank you.
I'll enthusiastically second.
All right. Any other brief discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye to approve the COSO letter.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All opposed, nay? Pass. Good. Thank you, Steve.
So I have a question, Mr. Chair. Since Steve got elected to be the vice chair, I assume he's going to continue to be our grants chair.
I've already appointed him.
It gives you
a.
I will, since Chuck resigned off the board, I will be looking for a vice chair.
Yeah. So, yeah. I know we've got quite a few other items. I know Nicole had something here on the agenda. And she asked for 15 minutes. I haven't seen if Nicole's even online with us yet.
I keep looking for her. I haven't seen her.
So
She sent me a brief summary.
I'm here on her behalf.
On her behalf, okay. I wish I would have been made aware of that.
I am sorry.
No, that's okay. We're colleagues. We'll get that.
May have been aware. Were you?
It happens. We've got a lot going on right now. So without further ado, let's go.
Okay.
We still got some things to go.
Standing in, right?
So
you have the floor.
The Yampa River IWMB, they asked for an action item. I am not fully aware of what they have, but there's a summary right there. That's been
Hopefully
sent
this
out.
was in your packet. Good evening, everyone. It is past my bedtime, but I'm Jennifer Wellman with the Nature Conservancy. I'm here representing the IWNP effort with Doug. And we are requesting your approval this evening of the Yampa Remote Environmental Assessment. It was performed last year by our consultants, Alba Watershed Consulting and OTAC. They did a very high level, remotely sensed viewpoint of the river and flows and fisheries and riparian health, and used a bunch of geographic information systems and tools through remote sensing to come up with a scoring method that we vetted through the IWNP. And I think you are all aware of this project. We're just coming to you with the final results that are available online on the Yampa-White-Green website, and hopefully that's easy to access, and if not, let us know. It's very comprehensive. There's an incredible mapping package that has an interactive map that you can check out. And yeah, I guess I would take questions. I think Nicole did prepare some slides, but this is, yeah, thank you, Patrick, for pulling that up. I guess in the interest of time, I would take questions or seek approval.
So what is the action item? We're actually approving and accepting the
final
product
package, yeah, which went through many rounds of review and analysis. There's a stakeholder component. It's built in, and it is a companion for the diversion assessment to help us align all of the priorities and to look for projects that, how's that map? It takes a while to load occasionally. Yeah, great.
What was stakeholder feedback consensus?
Really, there were a series of questions asked of all the stakeholders, so it wasn't a consensus-based, more looking for problematic areas and areas where flows have declined over time, and there's concerns about channel stability and interfaces with the diversions on the river. So we wanted to get a sense from the recreation community, the environmental community, and the ag community to see where there's alignment. It's really all about how the IWMP comes together. And this helps us review all of that data. It's publicly available data, but it helps create this layer cake effect so you can gauge impacts to the river based on what you're seeing in the fisheries health or the water quality component, coupled with all that stakeholder input. So it's really an interactive product that I think will be worthwhile if you take a look at it, and you can drill down to your reach of the river or a particular reach that you're concerned about. The Elk River and the Middle Yampa reaches were selected for further analysis because LIDAR was available, and we had increasingly interesting data kind of coming from those two reaches that seem to be relevant to the IWMP and pertinent to the kinds of projects that we were hoping to uncover. And so those are still in the works. And I think Nicole's got 3 different work groups working now on flows and agricultural diversions and projects and riparian stability and sort of wetland protection elements. So there's, yeah, Patrick's kind of going through, and there's quite a bit of data that is within all of this analysis that will help align projects, and hopefully some great projects will come to the forefront.
But what you're really voting on is this final report, accepting the
report.
That's right, yeah, so that it can be added to our assemblage of technical data and resources available.
Brenner moved to support.
So, not that you aren't doing a stellar job, but I wish Nicole was here. So I have a few comments, and it's not directly related to this, but indirectly. So, and I have to read it because I can't keep my thoughts straight. I believe there's a fundamental flaw in the IWMP process. And I am a member of the IWMP.
Okay.
And it's in the formation of the recommended topics and the sign-up sheet and the work on those topics. There's no authoritative body that's agreed to work on these topics. Excuse me. There's no authoritative body that has agreed to begin the process. I mean, many of the recommendations aren't consistent with the 8 BIP goals. The topics weren't agreed on by the Basin Roundtable to deviate from those 8 basin or BIP goals. For instance, the recommendation to develop a RISD on the Cross Mountain Canyon is an example of a recommendation that's not supported by many. We shouldn't forget that one of the priorities of developing the IWMP is that the topics and recommendations should be agreed upon by all interests. This isn't the LODIC survey, but I found the LODIC was not a very useful tool, was lacking a lot of data.
So that's totally separate from.
Yeah, I
this.
know, but this
Okay.
is the only time I get a chance to talk about the IWMP tonight. And I didn't want to get further in the process without having these comments. I'm also got some concerns that the project manager has not stayed in a neutral facilitator position. Maybe that's okay with most, but that's not okay with me. I also, I looked at the Route County Commissioner meeting and saw that the project manager had gone to them and given a report, and I wondered if Nicole had the support or acknowledgement even of IWMP committee members to speak at that commissioners meeting. And in the end, I believe if these things aren't addressed, I think time will be wasted, and I think consensus is going to be hard to attain. And as it relates to this, based on these other things that I've learned, I question the value. So that's where I'm at.
Appreciate that comment.
Yep. I also don't understand why there are so many people whose names show up as volunteering for a task that are not committee members. I don't understand that. I counted 7 non-members as being part of those work groups. That's a lot of influence. I don't think the roundtable's aware of that. So that's an issue for me. I also noticed there was at least 17 of those assignments that the project manager had put her name in. So by the charter, she's supposed to be a neutral facilitator. So these things are an issue for me. And I think the influence is out of balance.
Okay. Well, I wish I could respond.
Yeah.
So Doug, does that give you reservations about moving forward? What's
It does, yeah. I really think that the full roundtable needs to be enlightened as to the things I just brought up before we make decisions, really anything to do with IWMP at this point. I'm really disappointed at some of the things I've learned.
Some of those issues came up in the meeting we had in Steamboat, and I understand where Doug's coming from, and I think one of the things we've got to be careful about as a roundtable is focusing on what our actual process is, and as we go through subcommittees, making sure that those members are actually legitimate process. I know Nicole would be able to address some of those concerns if she was here, but I understand where Doug's coming from on this.
Yeah, I certainly feel like those are questions she should answer or consider.
So
I'm not here for that purpose.
I understand that, and I guess I look back at this where I see our brand prepared for the Basin Roundtable. And I know everything they've done comes back to the roundtable for all approval. I guess I look at the IWMP committee for the Yampa. That's a committee. If they accept it and they're okay with it, then it comes back. But as recognized within our bylaws very clearly, everything that we do is built upon consensus. And we're gonna work our ass off to get to consensus building. That's what we've agreed to do. And I think we have an opportunity here to where we potentially need to have a different conversation here from what I gathered from here. It's not just one or two isolated incidents. It's
People
something.
are aware. I don't think the roundtable as a whole is aware of how things have been going at the IWMP. I don't think I'm sure there's going to be we don't have enough participation from the committee. That's likely to come out. Well, that doesn't give us permission to go forward with non-committee members having a significant amount of input into the product. So that's where I'm coming from. I don't think people are aware.
You got something you'd like to add, Tom?
Well, I just want, so I guess what we have before us, did you say the committee has reviewed this and is now recommending it to the roundtable?
We don't even have a process for that.
And so, well, so let me just say.
I mean, we have the main steering committee, and that's, I don't know, I haven't, dazzle us with more information, it's just how much can you throw at us and say, here, accept this? And I'm very concerned what Doug said too. I mean, this becomes our consensus-based that we agree, and this is the Bible moving forward. And these guys never listened to anything. I was one of the only property owners on the whole damn river. And you want to ask me what I think? Well, they didn't listen to what I said, I thought. So I don't know what it matters, and garbage in, garbage out, as far as I'm concerned. So, it stands the test of its role that it's going to be. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm resigning tonight. I'm making it official. I'm no longer the chair. Doug sent me the information on what the chair should have been doing for the last 6 months, 8 months that I've been the chair, which I damn sure have not been doing, including reviewing these and knowing what the hell I'm even reviewing in the first place to even know whether it should be an A or a negative. So anyhow, I'm not going to vent anymore either. I figure we got to get moved through the process and sort of done with it.
So I agree with you, Doug, and I was just going to say, the committee, if it approved it, as Doug said, the committee's been made up of, in some meetings, a majority of people don't even live in the basin, from NGOs and other interest groups that show up online, and that's who we have as a committee who's approved this. So I'm not ready to approve it based on that recommendation. So I'm going to make a motion that we table, take any action tonight.
This T-Ride, I second that. I'm disturbed by what I hear, and it's late, and let's postpone this and have a conversation.
I need some help here with Robert's Rules of Order. If you table something and you have a motion and second, do we need to take action, or is it just done by two people supporting to table it?
The correct way to do this is you always table it to a date certain, and it's a majority vote.
Okay.
And there is no discussion on any matter other than the table.
Just to table it. Okay, so we do have a motion and second just to table this, and we'll bring it back. Okay?
So to the next meeting?
Yes. That's the January. To the January meeting, yes. I'm gonna call it. So there's no more discussion. All in favor? You take the vote to say aye. To table it, yes. Yes, sir.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Okay, it passes. So we're rehashing this thing. I think there's a conversation that needs to happen yet.
Hey, Alden, this is Kent. If I can speak, I too have not been part of the IWMP in full. I've been on the periphery. And what is your process now? Is it Doug that's going to go with you to Nicole and bring this up to her? How are you foreseeing that happening?
I'm just jumping into that, Kent. So I guess what I foresee is, I'm willing to, I'll do whatever you want me to step into whatever role. But I believe there's a conversation that needs to happen from entities here that are concerned about this to make sure that Nicole and whoever else you feel needs to be aware of your grievances or where you feel that there's some issues. That's how we're gonna get past this thing. That's what's gonna.
I'll tell you one thing that, and all of us should do on the roundtable, is take the time, if you care about this IWMP, and you're gonna weigh in on this next conversation, read the charter.
Absolutely.
The charter is not hard to obtain. I asked Nicole for it. She gave it to me immediately. And it includes all the different roles, including the project manager, which is supposed to be a neutral facilitator.
Understand.
So I think that's a recommendation for me. Everybody should read that if they're gonna be part of the discussion.
Okay, not a problem.
So, and the other thing Doug and I had this little conversation, we don't know how OTEC was selected. We don't know how the contractors were selected. Nobody knows anything. What selection process was done? It went through the River District as a fiscal agent. It's quite defined in what the fiscal agent's supposed to do. They're supposed to pay the bill after, it gets approved by the committee. So, we don't know what happened to that procurement process at all. We don't know. We don't know how Nicole got the job. We haven't figured that out.
I've been supportive and I continue to support that the Yampa IWMP is a locally driven process. I've always said that, just like on the White River. But if I need to step in and help you have these discussions,
So I have a simple question.
Yes.
If one of the contractors that is a principal in, say, Loaded, and is it a conflict of interest for that person to sign up for one of the recommendations and sign up for being on that work group? Well, right off the bat, I know if it's not a member, if that person's not a member of the IWMP, they shouldn't be, but is it a conflict of interest on top of that?
Those are the discussions that we gotta have.
So,
Yeah, I haven't seen
Okay.
that, but.
This is
Chairman.
tabled. We'll have to, we're tabled it. We're gonna move on because we got a couple more.
Chairman.
Yes.
I would ask that you and Doug, and you may choose to engage your executive committee, have a discussion about this. You may want to have a special meeting as opposed to, it sounds like sacrificing the next roundtable meeting on this topic to have, thoroughly vet all of the concerns that have been expressed tonight and then come back with a report at the January meeting and not have a complete free-for-all during our meeting in January. That'd be a suggestion.
Thank you. Good suggestion. Thank you, Ken.
Sounds good.
Can I make a suggestion? If you're gonna be roundtable members, everything's on the webpage. So if you come off our main webpage here, and click on the top IWMP, I'm just gonna show you where all the information that you can go find, okay? So you can go to the website. All the committee meetings are right here. Past meetings available are here. She's got everything up there, so dig into this for the information.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yes.
As an IWMP committee member, I'm gonna take a slice of the blame pie here. I think we probably, as members of this, we need to be engaged in this discussion because we were appointed by the roundtable. We made a commitment. I'll be the first one to say, I've been hit or miss. My commitment hasn't been made, so we kind of need to be involved in the discussion going forward.
Goes back to just what I just said here. There's a conversation outside of this room that needs to happen. And we're gonna set that up and we're gonna make sure we have that conversation with all those that need to be a part of that.
Yes, not just with executive, but the committee members that the roundtable hasn't. Yes.
All right.
Just want to be cleared up.
I'm still looking for local leadership because this is a Yampa River IWMP process. I will be helpful with it, but I'm looking for local leadership on this thing as well. Okay. All right. Ken, I think you still probably got your microphone on. You got less than 5 minutes.
Thank you. Patrick, did you want to go through anything that you had specifically? Patrick has already prepared a report on the progress he's made on the grant from the roundtable and any other updates. And then I have a couple of quick things that I think are important to bring up. I'm sorry.
Just a quick thing, and for all our partners out there, on the White, on the Yampa, on the Snake, wherever, anybody in the basin that's got anything water event coming up or information they want to share, send it to me so I can send it out through our Facebook or our email or whatever is appropriate. That would be just, we're having the water weekly Tuesday things that we're doing about the IWMP, as well as, we're gonna work on to the White River, whatever.
The initiative.
And the endangered fish. So any information that you want out, send it to me and I'll get it out there.
Okay.
You're up, Ken.
Thank you, Patrick. I have 4 items.
Patrick.
I'm going to skim through them. We could spend a half hour on these. So I'm just going to skim through them. If you want a lot of additional detail, please call me or email and I'll be sure and go over it with you. A couple things. Some of you already are aware, but the Colorado Water Conservation Board is going to be presented with an alternative to the funding model of severance tax for the roundtables next year. And the proposal is to have a set line item of $3 million to support the roundtables. That would give each roundtable for the near future approximately $300,000 annually as their allotment to support the roundtables. So you only have to realize there's 9 roundtables to realize that means there's a 10th pot of $300,000. That is being proposed to support the PEPO, Public Education Participation and Outreach Program. They've long had not very great funding. I think, what is it, Patrick, $6,500 a year? So this would get that up over $30,000 a year. It would help probably, we could decide that we wanted to provide additional staff support for the Grants Committee and for the Big River Committee. It would be money that we would have some discretion over. So I just wanted to make sure everybody's aware that that is being considered. Second, there's an effort underway to try to better define and message the outcome of the state water plan. You can't just write up a 500-page plan and set it on the shelf and have the public understand or support what you're trying to do. So this messaging effort would be coordinated through the roundtable, through Russ Sands, through the roundtable, through the Colorado Water Conservation Board with Russ Sands as the leader, but it would also include all of the PEPO committees and roundtables, as well as the Water Education Colorado folks. So that's the second thing. Also, Patrick mentioned the Water Education Colorado is coming up on their Water 22 proposal. Patrick has suggested that we do something with flood irrigation, since that's a big issue up here. We know a lot about it. We'd like to share that. And then finally, we did a survey in the state, the Water Conservation Board did, to assess water awareness. Water awareness survey was completed by BBC. They're going to do a second survey. Patrick and I participated in refining the questions for that survey. It is now online. If you go to engagecwcb.org, it's like the second or third thing on the page. You go into that survey. So there's 2 renditions of the survey. First one is science-based, 1,200 people. It's a science, it has to meet the criteria of being scientifically valid. The other one is the one I just mentioned, where you can go on the website. I'm going to ask Megan to please send that out to all of these members of the roundtable, as well. You can turn right around and forward it to your organization. Everyone can participate, but remember that we're also trying to assess just the general awareness of water issues here in the state of Colorado. Those are the 4 things I wanted to bring up. Thank you for your attention.
Wow, that was well done, bud. Nice. Aaron, are you still with us, Aaron? You said you didn't have a whole lot. Aaron,
Yeah,
thank
I
you
am.
for
So
Thank you for hanging with us here tonight. Thank you very much.
you bet, my pleasure. I will make it brief. I will just tell you that, give you a reminder, November 15th, there is a Zoom meeting. It's going to be the 7th and last of this set of stakeholder meetings for the measurement rules. So again, that is Monday evening. I think it's from 6 to 8. Information on that, the Zoom information can be found on our website. Also to take note, as far as the measurement rules, another draft of the measurement rules should be posted tomorrow. Yeah, that's available on our website as well. And take note that we did have an updated set from our first set of stakeholder meetings. You know, we've had the first 4 in Steamboat, Oak Creek, Meeker, and Rangeley that looked at pretty much a skeleton, if you will, picture of those rules. Then we updated that for the Walden and Craig meetings. And that one that is on our website is dated, I believe, the 20th of October. And so the one you want to look for the most recent one, I think it's going to be dated today, November 10th. So if you want to look at those rules at any time, and definitely if you want to look at them before the Zoom meeting Monday, that would be great. And that's all I have.
Thank you. You had your turn already. Callie, what's up?
So just clarification, Aaron, my understanding is there isn't any timeline yet on submitting comments. There are deadline, I guess I should say, yet. Is that correct?
Yeah, Kelly, I did actually ask Kevin this evening while on this meeting. I sent him an email asking him that question. He does suggest that people provide their comments as soon as possible, but he does envision these rules to be continued to be in the works throughout the rest of this year. So I would say you have to till the end of the year, but the sooner the better.
Thank you.
Diversion records are due November 15th as well.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. I think that's it. Yes, Steve.
I'd just like Patrick maybe to pull up the web page and show you guys what we've been working on for projects.
Okay, I thought you were done, sorry.
No, I would like to have been then, but they left me down in the. Can you pull up the webpage, Patrick, and just for the projects?
The homepage, projects. So this is the completed projects page. So you can come down here and you can see where we've completed projects, I said studies, because it's not actually something earth or not, it's like a study. You know, we hopefully can find, you know, an application and then reports for it that it will actually be there. So as the maps of that, you can find more information. If you come into the projects in progress, these are all the projects that we have in progress right now. That's been updated since the 25th of October.
Yeah.
So you can come in here and, you know, let's find pick on something else. Maybe pick on Crimson Anvil and Leafy Spurs. You know, you click on that, you can find all the reports that have been submitted by those projects for us to keep up to date of what's going on.
So the original in the other, so when you can click on any of those, you see the CWCB grant application for the project. And then you can see all the 6-month reports up through the latest one. And Patrick's got a table for each that says, you know, what the total grant is and kind of the running total of the projects outside. So we had to split the projects page up into 2. One with the in progress, and then one that is completed.
And we can see what we assume the completion date is there, so we can know if the projects are due or not.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Otherwise, there's just one announcement.
I really want to make sure that we appreciate all of the work that Patrick has done on the webpage. Yes, we do remunerate him, but he's not going to be able to retire from ranching yet. And Steve, I want to give a shout out to Steve. Working on the grants committee, it's unbelievable the amount of work that he does, that he puts in, takes personal responsibility. You can see he shows up at the meeting. He's prepared. He keeps things moving along smoothly. He does a great job. You guys elected a really solid new vice president.
I'll flat here.
Good night. That's it. We're meeting adjourned.
Sindine, what isn't it?
I'm tired.
Sindai.
Huh? Next meeting's roundtable, January 12th. Remotely. So I'll be in your office. Actually, we'll open up our office and we do bring people in. They sit there.